Chapter 607. Above the Taishang sword formation, the black and white sun and moon shone. Boundless power swept down. Sword chi crisscrossed and sealed the void within 100 miles. Xian Luo stood quietly in the sword formation. He looked at the black and white sun and moon in the sky and narrowed his eyes. There was no doubt that the power of the sword formation came from the sun and moon in the sky. If he wanted to break the formation, he had to destroy it. Just as Xian Luo was about to break the formation, knowing Destiny, who had been watching the battle for a long time, disappeared silently on West Jade Mountain. Behind him, the Light Elder and the West Jade Lord were stunned. Outside the Taishang sword formation, knowing Destiny walked out and looked at Xian Luo in the formation. His dark and deep eyes were calm. "It's you," Xian Luo said coldly in the sword formation. He sensed something and looked outside. "Long time no see, Xian Luo," knowing Destiny said calmly. Xian Luo's eyes flashed with strong killing intent. He said in a low voice, "Kid, when I get out, I'll turn you into ashes and you'll never be reincarnated. Now, I'll give you the chance." Knowing Destiny said indifferently and stepped into the forbidden formation. The wind and clouds changed. Above the 9 heavens, thunder and lightning flashed across the void, illuminating the hopeless darkness. "You came to die." "Stupid," Xian Luo said as he looked at the figure walking into the formation. His eyes were full of killing intent. "Is that so?" With that, knowing Ming clenched his right hand. The Taisher sword slowly descended from above the formation and entered his hand. In an instant, the formation shook. Countless streams of swords flew out. There were thousands, tens of thousands, endless, shaking the world. Seeing this, Xian Luo's face darkened. He said, "You can control this formation." "It's too early to be surprised," knowing Destiny said coldly. He clenched his left hand and the red sword appeared. The blood-red blade surged with fierce power. The most ferocious weapon in Zhongzhou state showed its power again. The Taoist and devil weapons appeared. The Black Phoenix showed up. The symbiosis of yin and yang affected the black and white sun and moon in the sky. Majestic power fell and penetrated knowing Destiny's body. In an instant, the black robe moved and the blade flashed. The two demons started fighting. Sword and palm collided. Boundless waves of fury roared through the skies and split the seas. Blood-red and black clothes fluttered in the wind. This was a battle of mere centimeters, a combination of strength and speed. The moment they clashed, it was already white-hot. The sword current surged and circled around the knowing Destiny state. With the Taishang prohibition formation on his body, the knowing Destiny state's power was greatly enhanced. He wielded his sword with great force. After exchanging several moves, Xian Luo's face turned cold. The demonic essence in his palm grew even stronger, becoming more and more powerful. Knowing Destiny held his sword horizontally and blocked Xian Luo's palm. He took half a step back and said calmly, "Xian Luo, your strength has weakened. Enough to kill you." Xian Luo coldly snorted. He once again urged his devil Yuan to push back the person in front of him. Soon after, he took a step forward, and a blood-colored chi wildly swept out from his body. An unusually powerful pressure caused the surrounding area to shake violently. Sky Breaker. The tip of the knowing Destiny sword turned and streaked across the void. 1,000-foot-long gust of wind roared out. Wherever it passed, the void cracked and a huge gully appeared in front of him. The demonic might collided, and a gloomy cloud hung over the world. The world-shaking battle between the two demonic beasts caused the terrain within 1,000 miles to constantly change. Mountains were destroyed, rivers were overturned, and valleys were born on flat ground. Bloody path. After one move, another was launched. The knowing Destiny sword flashed past, and a bloody light surged, crashing into Xian Luo. Xian Luo's eyes narrowed. The demonic essence around him surged, and he turned his palm into a fist to block the sword. The two moves collided, and bloody light surged. The two demonic beasts facing each other were equally emotionless. The murderous intent in their eyes was bone-chilling. With the support of the Taisheng Forbidden Formation, the Knowing Destiny technique reached the peak of his life. He fought the otherworldly demon head-on. Demonic change, burial of 1,000 souls. Seeing that the person in front of him was different from before, Xian Luo furrowed his brows in anger. He flipped his palm, and a bloody light gathered. Within the bloody light, demonic chains crisscrossed, and a swaying sound of death sounded. The demonic body's expression didn't change. The red chain met the demonic light head-on, and the sword was instantly blocked, unable to move forward. At the moment of stalemate, the Taisher sword in Knowing Destiny sword moved. The formation sensed it, and a green sword current followed, breaking through the air. The two swords rose to the sky, and their power increased sharply. However, Xian Luo's palm changed at the same time. Bloody light rose, and demonic chains coiled out, forming a barrier that blocked the incoming sword current. At this moment, the wind and clouds below the formation suddenly changed. Amidst the rumbling, swords soared into the sky, shining with a brilliant green light. Xian Luo's eyes narrowed. He flipped his palm and pushed the person in front of him away. Then he stepped into the air, avoiding the sharp swords. Can you dodge? Knowing Destiny said coldly. The Taisher sword spun, and the sword current appeared silently in the sky. It came and went without a trace, drowning the former. The sword current of heaven and earth intersected, and the demonic king was injured for the first time. A smear of bright red flew out, dazzling to the eye. Knowing Destiny's sword had gained the upper hand, but there was no joy on his face. He looked at the figure in the sword current in the sky, and his eyes grew more solemn. At this moment, the pressure in the sky suddenly dropped. Amidst the rolling demonic chi, the demonic body appeared. Xian Luo returned to his original form, and his terrifying aura made the sky and earth fall. The scene in front of Xian Luo was shocking. The mountain-like demonic body brought endless pressure. In front of the demonic body, life was as small as an ant, and could disappear from the world at any time. Seeing this, Knowing Destiny stepped into the void. He spun his two swords, and a phoenix appeared. Yin and Yang opened the formation. The wind and clouds in the sky were chaotic. Two completely different colors, one black and one red, rose up. In the sky, the Tai Chi formation appeared. The sun and moon sensed it and turned into the eye of the formation, merging into the Tai Chi formation. The formation within the formation was activated, and its power increased sharply. The green sword current suddenly turned black and red. There was no beginning and no end, and it was endless. Sky fall. Knowing Destiny shouted. Majestic sword current fell from the sky, falling into the clouds and slashing toward the otherworldly demon with shocking pressure. Useless struggle. Xian Luo smiled coldly. He flipped his palm and raised it to the sky. The immortal body of the demonic body rose up against the sky, breaking the sky fall sword. Demonic eye sky burial. The moment the move was broken, Xian Luo's forehead suddenly split open, and a dark green evil eye opened. In an instant, majestic power shone out, silently penetrating Knowing Destiny's body. Ugh! With a muffled groan, Knowing Destiny flew back dozens of feet with blood flowing out of his mouth. He was injured for the first time. At this moment, the formation shook, and a moon-white arrow light appeared in the sky, flying towards Xian Luo's heart. After the arrow passed, a sword appeared. The blue-clothed figure condensed essence sword and slashed towards Xian Luo. At this critical moment, Zhao Yousu and the Lord of Taibai Prefecture appeared and fought the otherworldly demon. You don't know your place. Xian Luo snorted and smashed the arrow light with his palm. Then, the demonic essence rolled and slapped toward the Lord of Taibai Prefecture. Blood splattered in this move. The completely different power was far beyond that of a mortal supremacy. Without the protection of yin and yang, the Lord of Taibai Prefecture was severely injured. 9 wheels rotating heaven. The purple-clothed girl flew past, and the wheel of 9 souls appeared, turning into a divine weapon and slashing the demon. Xian Luo waved his hand, and a demonic wind surged, blowing the former away. The two supremacies' attacks were like ants trying to shake a tree. They couldn't withstand a single blow. Zhao Liusu and the Lord of Taibai Prefecture stabilized themselves and suppressed their injuries. They wanted to go forward again, but they found the black-clothed figure blocking their way. "Get lost if you don't want to die," Ji Ming said indifferently with his back facing the two. Then, he looked at Xian Luo and said coldly, "Again. You can still live after taking a blow from me. I admire you." Xian Luo raised his hand and said arrogantly, "I've heard this too many times." Knowing destiny combined with the sword. The power of the phoenix demon on the sword soared to the extreme. The shocking sword pressure swept out. In the blink of an eye, within 1,000 miles, countless sword lights gathered rapidly. The pinnacle of the absolute sword appeared. Nirvana. A lifetime of seeing the sword on the sword, born from the martial arts of the two legendary swordsmen of the eastern region, knowing destiny developed his own sword. In the sky, the magnificent sword light was so brilliant that it was like the brilliance of the stars, illuminating the land for thousands of miles as if it was daytime. In the next moment, the sword light swept out like a meteor. The powerful sword intent destroyed everything in its path. The world was devastated. It was an immeasurable sword. Xian Luo's expression also became serious. He pushed his devil spirit to the limit, and the devil wave rose to the sky and crashed into the shocking sword. When the devil techniques collided, the world shook violently. The destructive power of doomsday spread endlessly. 10 miles, 100 miles, 1,000 miles, the world dissipated and turned into nothingness. With two muffled groans, the two devils retreated at the same time. The corners of their mouths were dyed red. They were seriously injured after one blow. Seeing the opportunity, Zhao Liusu and the Lord of Taibai Prefecture moved at the same time. The two swords flowed and broke the devil technique. However, at the moment when the two swords were about to reach Xian Luo's body, the devil armor suddenly appeared on Xian Luo's chest and blocked the deadly sword. The sudden change made the three people's pupils shrink. Before they could react, Xian Luo's palm slapped out, and the two people vomited blood and flew out. 100 feet away, the Lord of Taibai Prefecture, who bore most of the power of the palm, was spurting blood from his chest. When his life was about to end, he desperately gathered all his true essence and used his Taoist sword to connect heaven and earth. He used the move of proved supremacy in the past. The path of the mortal world is the ultimate sword. With the enlightenment of the Taoist heart, his cultivation broke through the limits of the mortal world and reached the legendary celestial treading realm. The Lord of Taibai Prefecture was bathed in blood. He was the ultimate sword of the mortal world. The earth-shattering sword was indescribable. There was only one sword left between heaven and earth. It broke through the mortal world and revealed its ultimate sword. The ultimate sword of the Tao destroyed the sky and reached Xian Luo's chest in an instant. The Taoist formation sensed it, and the yin and yang sword radiance appeared out of nowhere. It merged with the Taoist sword and broke the devil armor. Ah! The ultimate sword of the Tao resonated with heaven and earth. Xian Luo let out a muffled groan and took a few steps back. The devil armor on his chest blocked the fatal sword. Crack! There was an almost undetectable cracking sound. The combined attack of the 49 Taoist leaders and the current Taoist leader finally showed a flaw in the indestructible devil armor. Xian Luo's expression changed. He gathered devil essence in his palm and sent the person in front of him flying. Swoosh! At this moment, the blood-red sword radiance slashed and cut off an arm. Blood spurted into the sky. Ji Ming waved his hand and caught the falling demonic body. Devil Qi surged in his palm and devoured the power of Xian Luo's broken body. Not far away, the lord of Taibai Prefecture fell to the ground with a bang. His martial bones were all broken. Blood flowed like a fountain and dyed the ground red. His consciousness gradually dissipated. The Taoist leader looked at the black-robed figure in front of him. Confusion flashed in his eyes. Jiming Marquis, have I returned it to you? The lord of Taibai Prefecture didn't have time to hear the last words. His arm fell silently. He looked at the mortal world for the last time. He had no regrets. Chapter 608. In the Taisheng Forbidden Formation, Taibai Jingxing died in battle, and his blood dyed the ground red. Knowing Destiny, who stood in the void, didn't change his expression, but the coldness in his eyes intensified. After devouring Xian Luo's arm, the demonic waves around him were as deep as the ocean. On the ground, Zhao Liusu's dress was stained with blood, and her pretty face was pale. The battle between the two demons was way beyond the realm of the mortal world. Even a prime couldn't withstand it. Blood kept dripping from the divine sword formed by the Wheel of Nine Souls. The severely injured prime master of the Zhao family was also in danger. In the void, Knowing Destiny's black robe fluttered, and he instantly appeared beside Zhao Liusu. He flipped his palm and knocked her out of the battle. Don't come in again, or don't blame me for being impolite. Knowing Destiny said coldly, and then his figure flew out. Qi Lian condensed his essence and waved his sword. The two demons started fighting again. Demonic qi surged, and the aftermath was horrifying. The boundless airflow was devastating. In the sky, thunder rumbled, and the Tai Chi diagram kept spinning. The light of yin and yang sprinkled on the mortal world. No matter who won this battle, the demons would come to the mortal world. Knowing Destiny, who had dual swords in his hands, combined with the power of the Forbidden Formation, fought the king of the demons. Every move was powerful. On the other hand, Xian Luo's broken arm was surging with demonic qi, and it recovered in a short time. However, the obviously weakened aura showed that the broken arm was still a serious injury for an otherworldly demon. Fourth sword, no choice. Qi Lian waved, and the move of the Tianfu swordmaster appeared again. Among the 11 moves, it was the easiest to master. Other than Mu Chang'e, Tian Xiang and Fan Xinghong had all used it before. Today, the fourth sword was used again, and the boundless power of death gathered, opening the path to hell. Demonic qi and demonic qi converged, and the aura of death spread between the heaven and the earth. The same sword move, but different sword intent, frightening even gods and ghosts. You disobeyed me. You can't be forgiven. Xian Luo was furious. He flipped his palm, and thousands of birds chirped. Black lightning circled around him, and the powerful aura of destruction shook the netherworld. The two ultimate moves clashed. The strongest demon and the peak sword interweaved into the tragic scene of the two demons fighting. With a clang, the netherworld was destroyed, and Qi Lian broke through the lightning, stabbing at Xian Luo's heart. In the violent collision, the demonic armor blocked the sword. Xian Luo, and Luo's hand. Bang! Genesis Supreme blocked the demonic palm, and the yin-yang sword flows converged, scattering most of the remaining power. Formless sword. Forcefully suppressing his injuries, Knowing Destiny rotated the red drill sword in his hand and concentrated it again and again. The sword rotated at a high speed and broke through the flaw left by the Lord of Taibai Prefecture at the risk of his life. Crack! Cracking sounds rang out once more. The demonic armor that had been heavily damaged finally showed signs of collapsing. The demonic palm came again. Knowing Destiny stepped back and slashed out with his sword. With a loud bang, the devil qi surged. Blood spurted out of Knowing Destiny's arm and dyed the blade red, but the momentum of the sword became fiercer. Strike after strike, more and more cracks appeared on the demonic armor in front of Xian Luo's chest. It had already reached its limit. Drink! Seeing that the demonic armor was about to be destroyed, Ji Ming shouted and stepped into the air. He crossed his two swords and the power of yin and yang flowed continuously. The Tai Chi formation shone brightly and enhanced the power of the sword. Sword, return to truth. The sword reached the extreme and returned to its original state. The knowing destiny body disappeared. The fast, accurate, and focused sword instantly appeared in front of Xian Luo and broke his armor. Ugh! The blade entered Xian Luo's body and blood spurted out. Xian Luo grunted and attacked the knowing destiny body with a world-shaking palm. The black clothes flew out and blood splashed all over the sky. Knowing destiny landed on the ground and stepped back. He stabbed his sword into the ground and steadied himself. The shocking battle between the two demons was extremely tragic. Injuries were exchanged and the battlefield was dyed red. Above the sky, the red and black Tai Chi formation kept rotating and suppressing Xian Luo's power. Knowing destiny endured his injuries and gathered the power of the Taisher sword in his right hand again. Thousands of black and red sword currents spiraled into the sky. The shocking power dissipated everything. At the same time, the red drill sword filled the sky. The evil spirit gathered endless devil chi. The blood-red flame rose rapidly and lit up the sky. In an instant, the two swords surged out and burned the sky and boiled the sea. The sword broke through the sky. The terrifying scene destroyed everything in the formation. Indestructible protection. Seeing the shocking move, Xian Luo also gathered the talent of the royal celestial demon. His bronze skin quickly petrified and turned into the strongest protective divine weapon. There was a shocking explosion and blood light shone. The indestructible protection resisted the Taoist demon's power. In the most extreme confrontation, the strongest spear and the strongest shield met for the first time. The black and red sword currents collapsed and couldn't break through the royal celestial demon's power. The two demons both had half the power of the royal celestial demon. At this moment, the difference between their talent and secret techniques was obvious. Xian Luo, who had the memory of the royal celestial demon, showed the shocking power of the royal celestial demon. He was in an invincible position. He struck back with a palm. The black clothes flew out and blood splattered, dyeing 1,000 feet red. After the two moves clashed, the battle between the two demons finally changed. Ugh! Knowing destiny landed on the ground and vomited a mouthful of blood. The devil chi around him surged. You're already powerless. I'll send you to the west with this move. Xian Luo clenched his fists. Violent thunder and lightning rose into the sky. Black thunder fell and an unprecedented pressure swept through the entire Taishang forbidden formation. Sword. At this moment, the grass and trees on the ground in the distance suddenly swayed and moved silently. The sword intent was ethereal and spread out. 11. In an instant, the sword intent rushed into the forest. It was bright and powerful. It came from afar and quickly broke through the air. Seeing this, Xian Luo immediately changed his move. The black thunder shook the sword. The two sides clashed. Xian Luo took half a step back. The dark thunder and sword light dissipated. Immortal Martial, Ling Yun. At the same time, a beautiful figure appeared in the battle. She flipped her hand and used a palm to refine the wind and clouds. Xian Luo blocked the power of Ling Tian with his arm and took half a step back. His expression became serious. You too, name. Mu Chang'e. Lady Chang. Two figures walked out. They both had powerful auras. The void shook. It was difficult to bear their existence. Lady Chang walked to Knowing Destiny and asked, "How are you?" "I'm fine." The demon wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Marquis Knowing Destiny, you've changed after 3 days. Mu Chang'e glanced at the former. He didn't hide the surprise in his eyes. In just 1 month, knowing Destiny's strength had improved so much. It was really shocking. The demon didn't say anything. He focused on suppressing his injuries and stepped into the void. He looked at Xian Luo and said calmly, again. Xian Luo snorted and said, "You only have the power of the royal family, but you don't have the cultivation method of the royal family. The result will be the same no matter how many times you try. Today, you'll definitely lose." Heaven's tear. Knowing Destiny's expression didn't change. He waved his red sword and the resentment of all living beings spread out. It was vast and boundless, merging into the Taishang Forbidden Formation. 6 paths fall together, thousands of demonic tribulations, Taishang Forbidden Sword. One move fell and another rose. The shocking forbidden technique appeared again. Taisher merged into the Tai Chi diagram. The clouds in the sky changed and the world fell. Demon Phoenix's calamity. After the forbidden technique appeared, the demon phoenix roared. Black flames rose from its body and burned the world. The next moment, a pitch-black sword light formed from the demon phoenix. 1 turned into 2, 2 into 3, 3 into infinity. In an instant, tens of millions of black sword lights fell from the sky, destroying everything and falling into the world. The Taishang Forbidden Sword appeared again. Its aura was unparalleled. The Forbidden Formation sensed it and merged all its power into it. The black and white sun and moon left the Tai Chi diagram and turned into 2 sword lights, slashing down at the royal family demon below. The sword that could destroy the world and the power of the demon phoenix descended. Xian Luo looked at the sky and narrowed his eyes. Demonic chi rolled on his 100-foot demon body. The most powerful technique also rose. True demon change, sky murder. With one punch, the void collapsed. The last technique of the 2 demons collided with each other. A terrifying aftershock spread out. The entire formation couldn't withstand it and quickly fell apart. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. The black-robed demon flew out, covered in red. He crashed into one mountain after another in the distance. On the other side, Xian Luo also retreated a dozen steps. Blood spurted from his chest. He was also seriously injured. Seeing this, Nu Chang and Mu Chang'e immediately rushed forward. Using the extreme martial technique, they fought the otherworldly demon again. Changling's secret method, the wind and clouds moved, turning into bolts of light that trapped Xian Luo. In an instant, Mu Chang'e used the heavenly fault sword to turn 11. The sword pierced through his body and heart. Ugh! With a muffled grunt, Xian Luo staggered, his demonic energy unstable. Sky shattering. The Black Phoenix roared. Knowing Destiny's figure appeared. Taisher slashed and beheaded him. The head of the demon body flew up, blood spurting hundreds of feet. Just as the 3 thought they had succeeded, the third eye on Xian Luo's forehead shone down again. It passed through Knowing Destiny's body and came out. Ugh! Knowing Destiny's figure shook violently and fell straight down, crashing into the ground. Mu Chang'e's expression darkened. He immediately stepped forward. The heavenly fault spun, sword light rose and formed a heavenly sword that slashed at Xian Luo's head. Xian Luo opened his eyes and blocked the sword light. He stopped fighting and flew into the sky. Soul capture. At this moment, Nu's figure flew out. Her slender hand shone with light. Soul capture Xian Luo. The light swept past. Xian Luo's eyes dimmed slightly. He suppressed the feeling of dizziness and charged out of the bindings, disappearing into the sky. Boy, treasure the few days you have left. When this seat recovers, you will pay me back 100 times over. The last words echoed in the world. Below, Knowing Destiny staggered to his feet. Looking at the disappearing demonic figure, his eyes were unusually cold. Moments later, Knowing Destiny walked in front of the demonic body. He quickly swallowed the demonic body to heal his wounds. There are parts of his memories here. Maybe they will be of help to you. Nu walked forward and handed over the part of Xian Luo's demonic soul she had absorbed. Knowing Destiny took it. After a moment of silence, he said, "Many thanks." The battle ended. Just as the three were preparing to leave, 3 dragons pulled a palanquin far away under the moon. The strange scene attracted everyone's gaze. Seeing this, Knowing Destiny's body shook. Ripples finally appeared in his eyes that had been calm. Nu sighed softly and said, "You, go." Now, there was no reason for the inner world to keep Knowing Destiny. It was impossible to keep him. Knowing Destiny didn't hesitate anymore. He stepped forward and was about to leave. Ning Chen. At this moment, Zhao Yousu walked over with Yin in the distance and shouted anxiously, "Don't you keep your promise?" Knowing Destiny stopped and immediately flew in front of the two. Without saying a word, he took the little girl and flew into the sky. Chapter 609. The starry sky was illusory and vast. Numerous large stars shone brightly, and it was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. In the distance, the 3 dragon corpses were pulling the palanquin. They were so fast that it was hard to see them with the naked eye. Behind the palanquin, the black phoenix flashed and caught up. It was hard to tell the time in the starry sky. Knowing Destiny, who had been chasing for a long time, was getting further and further away from the palanquin. The demonic phoenix transformed and Knowing Destiny appeared. He shouted and the demonic aura in his body surged out. It turned into demonic chains and rushed forward, trying to pull the palanquin and the dragon corpses. Between the stars, the demonic chains crisscrossed through the void and wrapped around the dragon corpses. It was shocking. However, the palanquin only paused for a moment. Then, divine light shone and broke the demonic chains. It moved forward quickly. The demonic body looked serious. He held Yin-Er's hand and chased after the palanquin again. After countless days and nights of running, the little girl beside Knowing Destiny didn't look well. The tiredness on her pretty little face was hard to hide. As time went by, the phoenix vitality in the demonic body gradually dried up. As the speed slowed down, it became harder for him to take care of Yin-Er. A few days later, in a strange starry area, fog blocked the way. It stretched for half of the starry area. It was very shocking. The 3 dragon corpses pulled the palanquin into the fog and went away. Knowing Destiny followed them and chased after them without stopping. The chase lasted for several months and crossed thousands of miles. Finally, on the 9th month, they had to stop. The palanquin disappeared in the depths of the starry area. Knowing Destiny stopped on a planet with life. The phoenix vitality in his body was almost dried up. In the strange starry area, life planets could be seen everywhere. Although they were of different sizes, they all had humans. Ning Chen, are we still chasing? On the planet, Yin-Er looked up and asked tiredly. Ning Chen was silent. After a while, he said calmly, "Let's rest for now. No more chasing." Oh. Yin-Er nodded obediently and didn't ask any more questions. Ning Chen glanced at the shining life stars in the sky above the big star. His eyes narrowed slightly, and then he took the little girl and walked toward the human city on the big star. Although he didn't feel a strong aura on this planet, the looming pressure in this starry area was definitely not weaker than that of Xian Luo. He just didn't know which life planet such a terrifying existence was on. It seemed like there were too many things in the outland that he did not know about. The phoenix body had left for so long, he wondered if she had gained anything. The Jade Lake divine water was not in the inner realm. The only hope was to find it in the outer realm. I can't walk anymore. After taking a few steps, Yin-Er looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar figure beside her and said timidly, "I can't walk anymore." When Ning Chen heard this, he didn't say anything. He stopped, carried the little girl on his back, and continued to walk forward. Feeling the familiar warmth, Er's tense body finally relaxed. Hugging the former, she fell into a deep sleep. Ning Chen stepped forward. His expression didn't change at all. His eyes were as calm as the abyss. The demon that gave up the last bit of warmth would never be able to return to the past. All that was left was the memory of the promise. Jinxi City was an ancient city on the Red Luan planet. Ning Chen brought along as they walked on the streets. There weren't many people in the city. The ancient city seemed a little quiet. The light drizzle made the ancient city seem even more hazy. Xiaoyu Cheng was a strange and picturesque restaurant. Ning Chen walked in and ordered some light dishes. Then, he gently woke the little girl up. In the restaurant, there was singing and dancing. Beautiful dancers with graceful figures danced on the high stage. A veiled woman played the zither. The guests below were mesmerized. The dishes were served in a short while. Ate happily. Ning Chen sat beside her and added some dishes to the little girl from time to time. However, he didn't eat a single bite. Slow down. Seeing the little girl eating too quickly, Ning Chen calmly reminded her. Raised her head and smiled brightly. Then, she continued to eat. In the big restaurant, there were two people, one big and one small, who didn't look at the stage. The small one was too busy, and the big one wasn't interested. Qing Feng, give that table a pot of new hong. Say it's a gift from the restaurant. On the second floor, in a quiet private room, behind the bead curtain, a man whose appearance couldn't be seen clearly was trimming the flowers as he spoke. Yes. A young man in blue clothes walked out and said respectfully. Qing Feng went downstairs and took a pot of new hong worth 100 gold from behind the counter. Then, he walked to the table of the big and small guests and put it down respectfully. He said, Sir, this pot of new hong is a gift from the restaurant. We don't accept money. Please enjoy. After saying that, Qing Feng bowed respectfully again and turned to leave. Ning Chen's gaze shifted to the second floor as a brilliant light flashed in his eyes. He hadn't noticed it before, but it turned out that there was such a person in this restaurant. Thank you. Ning Chen said. You're welcome. A calm voice came from the private room on the second floor. The two people's voices weren't loud. They were quickly drowned out by the singing and dancing. In the restaurant, none of the guests heard them. They continued to do their own things. Ning Chen opened the wine pot. The fragrance of new hong spread out. Raised her head and glanced at it. Then, she lost interest and continued to eat. However, the fragrance of the wine that the little girl wasn't interested in attracted the attention of many people in the hall. A tall and sturdy man walked up and said with a deafening voice, Brother, would you like a cup of wine? Ning Chen raised his head. His dark eyes were emotionless. He pushed the wine cup in his hand forward without saying a word. Seeing Ning Chen's gaze, the man's body froze. A chill unconsciously rose in his heart. He immediately apologized and quickly left. Ning Chen turned his head and didn't pay much attention to him. He took back the wine cup. As he drank, he added some vegetables to the little girl's bowl from time to time. I'm full. Not long after, put down her bowl and chopsticks. Ning Chen nodded lightly and said, Rest for the night. We'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Replied. She jumped off the stool and stretched out her little hand. You've grown up. You can't always hold my hand like a little girl. Go pay for the food and then book 2 rooms. Ning Chen took out a silver and put it in the little girl's hand. His expression was slightly cold. Wrinkled her little nose unhappily. She took the silver and ran to the counter to pay the bill. Shopkeeper uncle, pay the bill and also 2 rooms. Okay. Behind the counter, a well-dressed middle-aged man with a big belly took out an abacus with a smile. He counted a few times and replied, a total of 70 taels of silver. So expensive. Er's little face was shocked when she heard that. Ha! The shopkeeper didn't mind. He smiled and said, little girl, the food isn't worth much. However, there are only 10 rooms in Xiaoya Changhen. Moreover, each room is carefully decorated. Of course, the price will be more expensive. I want 2 rooms. Ning Chen walked forward, took out another piece of silver, and put it down as he said indifferently. The shopkeeper took the silver. The smile on his face became even brighter. He said, young master, follow me. The 3 of them went upstairs. In the adjacent room, the shopkeeper opened the door and welcomed the 2 of them in. Ning Chen looked at the signs hanging on the 10 rooms and narrowed his eyes. As expected, the background of this restaurant was not simple. There was a sign hanging on each of the 10 rooms. It represented the name of the room. It didn't look special. However, Ning Chen, who cultivated 4 heavenly tomes, knew the meaning of each sign. There were 10 heavenly tomes. Xiaoya Chang'an also had 10 rooms. The strange thing was that the names of the 10 rooms were exactly the same as the names of the 10 heavenly tomes. It was too much of a coincidence. Ning Chen looked back at the figure in the bright room again. His eyes flashed. Was it the bright volume? However, the bright volume was obviously destroyed. Moreover, this person didn't have the aura of the heavenly tomes. It was strange. Opposite, in the bright room, the man behind the bead curtain felt the former's gaze. He smiled faintly and said nothing. He continued to trim the flowers and plants in front of him. In the inner realm, on Xia Mountain, the night was quiet. At this moment, green light gathered and Shi Piaoxiu appeared. Above the void, a dragon gate appeared. From the dragon gate, a beautiful figure in a green dress slowly flew out. Her eyes were closed, and green light floated around her. Her vitality was almost undetectable. Just as she landed, Shi Piaoxiu suddenly staggered. She vomited a mouthful of blood, dyeing the ground red. Piaoxiu. Bai Lingling appeared. When she saw the beautiful figure in green floating in the air, her eyes trembled violently. Save her. That was her last order before she fainted. Shi Piaoxiu couldn't hold on any longer and fell straight down. Bai Lingling supported her. Then, with a turn of her hand, a golden light flashed and swept Qing Ning, who was in the green light, towards the clear sky Lotus Peak. On the clear sky Lotus Peak, the West Jade Master was meditating and healing. When she felt the 3 people's auras, her eyes opened. She turned into a stream of light and appeared before them. Master! Bai Lingling said with an anxious look on her face. The West Jade Master stepped forward and took Qing Ning's body. After checking, a serious look flashed across her eyes. Go to the 7 Buddha Heavenly Pass. With that, the West Jade Master waved her hand and swept the 3 of them towards the highest point of the clear sky Lotus Peak. Master, how is Qing Ning? In the 7 Buddha Heavenly Pass, a sea of fire rose. It was a shocking sight. On the rock, Bai Lingling looked worriedly at the beautiful figure floating in the air. Piaoxiu gave 70% of the clear sky lotus breath to Qing Ning and barely managed to keep her alive. However, Qing Ning's injuries are too severe. Adding on the fact that the demonic energy has entered her body, her heart meridians are heavily damaged. She could still be in danger at any time, the West Jade Master said with a grave expression. Is there a way? Bai Lingling asked again. Use the regenerative power of the clear sky lotus breath to protect Qing Ning's heart meridians. At the same time, use the Buddha fire in the 7 Buddha Heavenly Pass to reforge her Buddha body. There may be a chance. At this point, the West Jade Master paused and then continued, if Qing Ning wakes up, hide the news that the Jiming Marquis is still alive. As for the Changling female supreme, I will send someone to warn her. Jiming Marquis and Qing Ning have gone through this great calamity. If Qing Ning can use this chance to enter the great perfection realm, it will be a great fortune amidst misfortune. Bai Lingling nodded. After a moment of hesitation, she asked, Master, where is Piaoshu? The West Jade Master's expression turned cold. She acted on her own and violated the laws of the West Jade. When her injuries recover, send her to the Wall of Penitence for 60 years. Chapter 610. At night, the moon shone brightly. In the guest room of Xiao Yu Cheng and Ning Chen stood in front of the window and looked at the starry sky. Gradually, Zhi Ming's spiritual altar shone brightly. His divine soul was ethereal and his spiritual consciousness rushed to the starry sky. In the boundless starry sky, demonic waves rolled. The shadow in black was born out of his physical body and stood in the starry sky, looking for traces of the palanquin. The starry sky was vast. Endless fog occupied half of the starry sky, making it hard to see clearly. Only the life planets were so dazzling in the starry sky. After searching for a long time, there was no trace of the palanquin. The demonic chi gathered and his divine soul was ready to return. Demon. At this moment, a majestic voice sounded in the starry sky. The next moment, a seven-colored light rolled and a giant hand appeared, grabbing at Zhi Ming. The demonic chi changed and condensed into a shadow in black. It formed a sword with his fingers and shook the giant hand falling from the starry sky. With a bang, the light and demonic chi surged. In the shocking aftermath, the giant hand fell again. Knowing destiny retreated. The demonic chi around him converged into a black divine sword, which slashed out fiercely. After a moment, the giant hand and the sword collided. The starry sky rumbled and the aftermath hit. Zhi Ming retreated more than 10 feet. The demonic chi shook violently. On the other side, the little finger of the giant hand was cut off. The airflow was overflowing. Oh! A sigh of appreciation sounded. The seven-colored light rose and the giant hand returned to its original state. It slapped down with endless pressure. Zhi Ming squinted his eyes and pointed with his left hand. The demonic chi rolled and swept across the sword. The demonic chi reached its peak again. Just as the two attacks collided again, the sound of strings came from the life planet below. The sound waves rippled and collided with the giant hand falling from the sky. Ning Chen saw the opportunity and stepped on the ground. The demonic chi gathered together with his divine soul. In the guest room of Xiao Yu Cheng and in Jinxi City, Ning Chen's eyes flashed. The treading immortal realm was beyond his knowledge. Dong dong. Outside the room, there was a knock on the door. After a few knocks, the door creaked open. Stood in front of the door pitifully and said, I can't sleep. Ning Chen looked at the little girl and frowned slightly. Didn't this girl always sleep well? In the past, he couldn't even wake her up. After pondering for a moment, Ning Chen thought of a reason and said, come in first. Hearing this, walked into the room and closed the door. She poured a cup of tea and handed it to the former. She said sweetly, why aren't you asleep yet? Not sleepy. Ning Chen took the tea and said with a calm expression, sleep here. I'll guard you by your side and won't leave. Nodded her head vigorously and climbed onto the bed at the side. She closed her eyes and the exhaustion on her small face could not be concealed. Ning Chen went forward and pulled the blanket over the little girl. He patted her gently so that the little girl could sleep peacefully. He understood that was unable to sleep because he had abandoned her once. In this unfamiliar place, he was the only person she knew. If he left again, the little girl would truly be left without anyone to rely on. In her deep sleep, Er's small hand subconsciously grabbed the corner of the clothes of the person beside her. Only then did the nervousness on her small face ease up a little. Wrong. Ning Chen was silent. He knew he had taken the wrong path. But even though he knew it was wrong, there was no turning back. Within the guest room, the man behind the beaded curtain was tidying up the flowers and plants in the room. His lips curved. This strange devil had piqued his interest. He was clearly a devil and had already lost his humanity. But he was still able to rely on his memories to determine what he should do. He was very curious as to how long this weak and emotionless reason could last. The word love was something that could harm others if taken too lightly. But if taken too seriously, it could harm oneself. To be able to make a person who still had a little bit of reason become a devil, it could be seen just what kind of painful past this person had experienced. Pavilion Master. The shopkeeper respectfully bowed outside the guest room. How is this month's profit? Did you reach the goal I set for you? Asked the man behind the beaded curtain. I made a profit of 4,900 taels. However, the top-grade maiden's red you gave me today is worth 1,000 taels of silver. There are only 3 days left in the month. Making another 1,100 taels of silver is as difficult as ascending to the heavens, said the shopkeeper. Since I've already set my goal, I can't change it. Think of a way yourself, said the man calmly. Pavilion Master, that's impossible, said the shopkeeper awkwardly. Is that something I should worry about? I don't care what method you use. I only care about the final result. If you can't reach your goal in the end, the difference will be deducted from your salary, said the man indifferently. Oh. The shopkeeper's voice faltered. He helplessly said, Pavilion Master really is kind-hearted. He sympathizes with his subordinates. You can leave. The man didn't seem to mind. The shopkeeper once more respectfully bowed and left. Outside dawn moon Chung and the night sky gradually brightened. Ning Chen had been sitting by the bed the entire night, watching over the little girl who was sleeping soundly. He was quietly thinking about some things. When the sun rose, Yin woke up. She opened her eyes and saw the figure sitting by the bed. She sweetly smiled. Get up and wash up. We'll go down and eat something in a bit, said Ning Chen. Okay. Yin sat up and rubbed her eyes. She got off the bed and began to wash up. It was always troublesome for a little girl to dress up. Ning Chen didn't know anything about it and couldn't help. Thus, he silently stood by the side and watched. An hour later, the two of them went downstairs. Yin tugged on the former's sleeve and curiously sized up the entire restaurant with her large eyes. There weren't many customers in dawn moon Chung and in the early morning. On the high platform, there was only a veiled woman playing the zither. The melodious zither music reverberated in the hall. Yin ordered a table of dishes and happily ate them. Ning Chen quietly sat by the side, drinking tea while waiting. Eat. Yin put a small piece of vegetable in her mouth and placed it in front of the former. I'm not hungry. You can eat. Ning Chen calmly replied. Oh. Yin placed the vegetable in her mouth and cutely smiled before continuing to eat. Hong Wan, go toast the two guests. Today, we'll choose Heartless Nightmarish Dream. The man's voice sounded from the bright room. Yes. On the high platform, the veiled woman stopped playing the zither and responded. Shortly after, she walked to the wine rack and took a pot of wine before walking towards the two of them. Behind the counter, the manager's smiling face suddenly froze as if 1,000 knives were cutting his heart. Heartless Nightmarish Dream, 3,000 taels of silver. It didn't matter if the owner opened her mouth, Dawn Moon Chang An's 1 month's profit was gone. It seemed like he couldn't keep his salary anymore. Young master, I'll toast you. Hong Wan poured a cup of wine and placed it in front of the black-clothed young man as she softly said. Ning Chen received the wine and drank it in one gulp before placing the cup on the table. Little sister, I'll toast you. Hong Wan poured another cup and placed it in front of the little girl who was immersed in eating. Ina raised her head and giggled. Just as she stretched out her hand, she was hit. She's still young and can't drink. I'll drink this cup for her. Ning Chen took the wine cup and spoke in an indifferent tone. Soon after, he drained it in one gulp. On the second floor, in the guest room named Ming, the man revealed a faint smile and didn't say anything else. In the lobby of the first floor, Hong Wan was toasting people, causing the few guests in the hall to raise their eyebrows. For so many years, Miss Hong Wan had never toasted anyone, not even the royal family. Who exactly was this black-clothed young man? Ning Chen didn't care about other people's gazes. Yiner's heart wasn't ordinary either as she immersed herself in eating. Whoever wanted to look could look. On the side, Hong Wan subconsciously moved half a step closer to the little girl. Previously, she couldn't feel it, but after approaching the black-clothed young man, she discovered the bone-chilling coldness from the latter, causing her to involuntarily shiver. "Sister, I'll pour the wine. You can go back." Seeing the former's unnatural appearance, Yiner revealed a smile. Hong Wan's eyes revealed a trace of difficulty. Although she didn't want to stay here, she didn't dare to disobey the owner's order. "Come back." At this moment, the man's voice sounded from the second floor. "Yes." Hong Wan respectfully bowed and left. That sister must be very pretty. Looking at the former's exquisite figure, Yiner enviously said. "Not as pretty as you," Ning Chen calmly said. Hearing this, Yiner's eyes curved as she happily said, "You really know how to talk." On the second floor, in an elegant room, Hong Wan sat in front of a mirror and removed her veil. What entered one's eyes was a ghastly sword scar that was several inches long on her fair jade-like skin. Her originally perfect appearance was instantly destroyed and appeared somewhat frightening. "Hong Wan, is one's appearance really that important?" A calm voice sounded and asked. "A woman's appearance is more important than her life." Hong Wan revealed a sad expression. "Unfortunately, I was a bit late back then." The calm voice contained a trace of regret. Hong Wan is unable to repay the owner's life-saving grace. "As for my appearance," a trace of sadness flashed through Hong Wan's eyes as she said, "This might be Hong Wan's fate." "Actually, it's not that there's no way." The voice from the room changed the topic and said, "The reason why the scar on your face can't heal is because the pure sword intent on the wound is difficult to disperse. I don't dare to forcefully heal it, or else it might cause your injury to worsen. However, if there's an even stronger swordsman who is willing to remove the remnant sword intent on your wound, I'm confident that I can restore your appearance." Hearing this, Hong Wan's eyes trembled. However, a moment later, the brilliance in her eyes dimmed once again as she said, "Even with the owner's ability, you're powerless. Who else in this world has such ability? Perhaps the black-clothed young man you toasted earlier can do it." On the second floor, in the guest room, the man who was trimming the flowers spoke once again. "In terms of martial arts, I'm not afraid of anyone. However, in terms of the sword, I'm inferior to him." Speaking up to hear, the man looked downstairs and indifferently said, "However, the possibility of him helping you is too slim." Devils were ultimately heartless. Their current rationality was merely a reflection of their memories. This reflection could be abandoned at any time. All living beings in the world had thousands of long-cherished wishes. They prayed to gods and Buddha, but when had anyone ever heard of praying to devils? Chapter 611. Jinxi City, Xiaoyachanghen. On the third day, after resting for 2 days, Yiner's complexion was much rosier, much better than before. "Shopkeeper uncle, bill please." After Yiner finished her meal, she ran to the counter and took out her little brocade pouch as she said sweetly. 5 taels of silver. The shopkeeper listlessly said. Yiner took out a small ingot from her pouch and handed it over. "Shopkeeper uncle, what's wrong?" "We're going bankrupt." The shopkeeper was in a terrible mood. "Oh." Yiner responded and turned to leave. The shopkeeper looked up and asked in confusion, "Aren't you going to ask why?" "Why should I ask?" A trace of doubt appeared in Yiner's big eyes. "I can't help." The shopkeeper was speechless. What a strong logic. There were strange people every year, but there were especially many this year. The unpredictable floor master was already enough to give him a headache, and now there was another young man who hadn't spoken more than 10 sentences in 3 days and a little girl who could choke people to death with her words. How could he still do business? Sister is going out to buy rouge and face powder. Are you coming? Hong Wan gently asked as she walked down the stairs with her face still covered. Yes. Er's eyes brightened as she vigorously nodded. Wait for me. After speaking, Er ran to the second floor and knocked on the door of the sky room. She shouted, Ning Chen, I'm going to buy rouge and face powder with Sister Hong Wan. With a creak, the door opened. Ning Chen looked at the little girl in front of him and asked, Do you still have money? Yes. Er took out her pouch and shook it. Ning Chen waved his hand and took out a small ingot and placed it in the little girl's pouch. He softly said, Go. Happily smiled and turned to run down. In Jinsei City, on a street that wasn't too bustling, 2 girls, one big and one small, were walking forward to buy some things that women needed. Sister Hong Wan, why are you always wearing a veil? Er asked in confusion. Hearing this, Hong Wan's expression dimmed. It's nothing, it's just a habit. Oh. Er's attention was attracted by the face powder stall. She responded absent-mindedly and jogged over. Hong Wan laughed at herself and suppressed the fluctuations in her heart before following him. Boss, how much is this box of rouge? Er picked up a small mahogany box, opened it, and smelled it. 1 tael for 2 boxes, the stall owner said with a gentle expression. So cheap. Er was slightly surprised. Shortly after, she looked at the woman beside her and pouted. Sister Hong Wan, look at how honest the boss is. A single room in your restaurant can buy dozens of boxes of rouge. Hong Wan revealed a helpless expression and said, This is the price set by the pavilion master. I can't do anything about it. Young lady, do you want some rouge? It's homemade, so it's definitely not harmful to your body, the stall owner said honestly. I want 5 boxes. No, 10 boxes. Er gestured with her fingers. Give me 10 boxes too. It just so happens that the other sisters in the building can also use them, Hong Wan softly said. Alright, please wait a moment, I'll wrap it up for you. The stall owner revealed a joyful expression. Although a box of rouge didn't earn much money, the 2 young ladies wanted so much at once. It would still allow the family to live more comfortably. At this moment, the ground rumbled and trembled as a group of armored horses galloped past. The man in the lead wore a silver-white battle armor and had a heroic bearing. He was extremely extraordinary. Move aside. As the armored horses galloped over, the pedestrians on the street all moved aside. The stalls also hurriedly packed up and made way for them. Seeing this, Er and Hong Wan also hurriedly helped the stall owner pack up and retreated. However, the armored horses were too fast and they couldn't dodge in time. Seeing that they were about to collide, a trace of anger appeared on Er's small face. Her fair and tender hand grabbed the warhorse of the man in the lead and flung it away. With a bang, the warhorse flew several meters away and collided with dozens of armored horses behind it. Instantly, both men and horses were thrown off their feet and were in a sorry state. On the warhorse, the silver-armored man jumped up and furrowed his brows. With a clap of his hand, a spear appeared in his hand and he directly pierced it towards the little girl in front of him. A 9th-grade expert had an extraordinary cultivation and was much stronger than Er. Just as the spear was about to reach her, a blood-colored sword glint revolved in front of the little girl and shook the spear away from her chest. Er. Seeing that the little girl was attacked, Hong Wan became anxious and immediately went forward to check if the former was injured. I'm fine, said in a delicate voice. Just as she was about to speak, her pupils shrank. Seeing the whip swing over, the unprepared Hung Wan in front of was immediately hit and sent flying. The veil on her face was also shaken off. Ah! A cry of alarm sounded from the crowd, as if they were frightened by the sinister scar on Hung Wan's face. Hung Wan, who had fallen to the ground, coughed out a mouthful of blood and struggled to get up. However, she ignored the heavy injuries on her body and covered her face with her hands in panic. Sister Hung Wan. Hastily ran over and helped the former up. The silver-armored man in the lead looked at the frightening woman on the ground with disgust and said, "Attacking an official of the imperial court is an unforgivable crime. Capture both of them and throw them into the death cell." Yes. Behind him, 2 armored cavalry soldiers respectfully received the order and stepped forward to capture the 2. Was furious and was about to resist when suddenly, the atmosphere on the street stagnated. 2 figures appeared at the same time in a cool breeze and arrived in front of the crowd in a few steps. Ning Chen. House Master. And Hung Wan exclaimed in surprise. Kill them all? Mo Xiaoai calmly asked. Up to you. Ning Chen walked in front of and carefully examined her before indifferently saying. Then let's kill them all. Mo Xiaoai moved and a silver thread in his hand pierced through the crowd. In an instant, 17 cavalrymen were killed. There was no blood and no miserable cries. One figure after another directly fell to the ground. From beginning to end, no one had seen what had happened. On the street, the pedestrians were shocked and panicked. House Master, Hung Wan has caused trouble for you. Hung Wan stood up and lowered her head to apologize. They can't be considered trouble. Let's go back, Mo Xiaoai said with a faint smile on his face. Okay. Hung Wan nodded. Let's go. After the 2 left, Ning Chen looked at the little girl beside him and said. Wait a moment. Jogged to the rouge stall and helped the owner pick up the rouge that had scattered on the ground. Soon after, she secretly stuffed the small piece of gold in her small brocade pouch into the owner's hand and whispered a few words to him. The rouge stall owner's eyes were filled with tears as he repeatedly thanked her. Ning Chen quietly stood to the side and saw everything, but he didn't say anything. After finishing what she had to do, jogged back and held the hand of the person beside her with a smile. The 2 of them left and on the street, the crowd subconsciously made way for them. No one dared to stop them. Ning Chen, thank you for saving me, said happily on the way back. You're welcome, Ning Chen replied. Just now, there was a red light that flew out of my body. Did you leave it behind? Continued to ask. Yes. Ning Chen didn't deny it and replied. Ning Chen, can you promise me something? Er's mood suddenly became low. Speak, Ning Chen calmly said. Can you not leave me alone in the future? Raised her head and asked nervously. Ning Chen was silent. After a long time, he nodded and said, yes. Only then did a smile appear on Er's face and she tightly hugged Xiao Shou's hand. In Xiaoya Chang then, when the 2 of them returned, Hung Wan had already returned to her room to apply medicine. Jogged upstairs and said, I'm going to see Sister Hung Wan. Ning Chen nodded and didn't say anything. In the Ming room, a voice sounded, Friend, how about we go upstairs and talk? Hearing this, Ning Chen walked upstairs. In the Ming room, the owner of Xiaoye restaurant, who was wearing a gorgeous brocade robe, was fiddling with the flowers and plants in front of her. Seeing the former walking over, she walked to the table and calmly said, Please. Ning Chen sat down and still didn't speak. Brother, how should I address you? Mo Xiaoai poured 2 cups of wine and pushed 1 cup in front of the former. Ning Chen. I'm Mo Xiaoai, the owner of Xiaoye Chang and restaurant. What's the matter? Ning Chen raised his cup and went straight to the point. I have a matter to discuss with you. Brother Ning, please state your conditions. Mo Xiaoai didn't beat around the bush and directly said. Is it related to Miss Hong Wan? Ning Chen faintly asked. Brother Ning is really smart. The sword wound on Hong Wan's face can only be healed by a top swordsman. I'm not good with swords, so I want to ask for your help. Mo Xiaoai seriously said. Why is the owner so sure that I have the ability? Ning Chen narrowed his eyes and asked. Divine sense leaving the body in devil sword fighting, Mo Xiaoai slowly said. Hearing this, a dangerous glint flashed through Ning Chen's eyes. He said, since the owner knows that I'm a devil, why do you still want to help? Brother Ning is a guest of Xiaoya Chang'an. Helping you is something I should do. As for whether you're a devil or not, it doesn't seem to have much to do with me. Mo Xiaoai calmly said. Who is that person? Ning Chen asked. Mo Xiaoai, the master of Mo planet, the strongest expert of Hong Wan star field. Mo Xiaoai honestly said. Hong Wan star field. Ning Chen slightly frowned. Brother Ning, there's no need to doubt it. This isn't a coincidence. Hong Wan star was once the greatest star in Hong Wan star field, but it later declined. Hong Wan came from that ancient star. Mo Xiaoai explained. And who are you? Ning Chen coldly asked. Someone who poses no threat to Brother Ning. Mo Xiaoai replied. I want to know if the owner's conditions are true. Ning Chen didn't ask any more questions. Brother Ning, there's no harm in asking. Mo Xiaoai replied. I want to know the whereabouts of the Jade Lake Divine Water. Ning Chen slowly said. Hearing this, Mo Xiaoai's wine cup paused for a moment before returning to normal. The Jade Lake Divine Water belonged to the Queen Mother of the West in ancient times. Mo Xiaoai looked at the young man in front of him and calmly said, Brother Ning, do you know where the Queen Mother of the West originally came from? I don't know. Ning Chen shook his head. It's Hong Wan star. Mo Xiaoai seriously said. Crack. The wine cup shattered. Wine spilled out of Ning Chen's hand and dripped down his palm. Things couldn't be so coincidental. If it happened once or twice, it could be explained as a coincidence. However, every time the immortal corpse patrolled, it was always inextricably linked to him. Why? Chapter 6:12. In the bright room, the two of them had already conversed for over an hour. The Dawn Moon brothel master seemed to know everything about the Red One-Star field. In a short hour, Ning Chen had a rough understanding of this star field. Ning Chen thought for a long time and said, one last thing. Is there a way to bring the dead back to life? A strange light flashed through Mo Xiaoai's eyes. He nodded slowly and said, maybe. Legend has it that in ancient times, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm tried to bring a woman back to life. The Queen Mother of the West's immortal peach tree was taken away by the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm at that time. Ning Chen frowned and said, the Eastern Celestial Realm? Is there more than one celestial realm? Yes. Mo Xiaoai nodded and said, the galaxy is so vast that even true immortals can't cross it. It's not strange that there are 4 celestial realms. However, the Eastern Celestial Realm is the strongest among the 4 celestial realms. At that time, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm was the strongest person in the 4 celestial realms. No one could defeat him. Did the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm pass down the method to bring the dead back to life? Ning Chen asked. No. Mo Xiaoai shook his head and said, after the 4 celestial realms were destroyed, the Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm disappeared. Since then, no one has seen him. The method to bring the dead back to life also disappeared. Ning Chen was silent. If that was the case, the Celestial Palace should be in the Eastern Celestial Realm. However, who was that white figure with an aura comparable to the Nether King? The Lord of the Eastern Celestial Realm? Brother Ning, if you want to know more about the Celestial Realm, you can go to Mo planet. In the Red One Galaxy, Lord Mo is the person closest to becoming a true immortal. Mo Xiaoai suggested. Thank you. Ning Chen nodded. It's a fair trade. Brother Ning, shouldn't you fulfill your promise? Mo Xiaoai said calmly. When? Ning Chen asked. Now. Mo Xiaoai put down the wine cup in his hand and said, Hung Wan. After about 10 breaths of time, the door creaked open, and the veiled woman walked in. She bowed respectfully and said, House Master. Hung Wan, take off your veil and let Lord Ning. Hearing this, Hung Wan's body trembled. However, she did not dare to go against the former's words and lifted the veil on her face. When the veil was lifted, a shocking scene entered their eyes. Her originally fair and beautiful face had a hideous and terrifying sword wound across it, destroying the appearance of her entire face. Her flesh and blood were exposed, causing people to be unable to help but feel their hair stand on end. Outside the room, quietly followed them and came to Ning Chen's side. When she saw Hung Wan's face, her small hands unconsciously trembled. Your swordsmanship isn't bad. Ning Chen didn't pay attention to Hung Wan's appearance and indifferently commented while looking at the sword's scar. What do you think? Are you confident? Mo Xiaowai asked. 100%, Ning Chen said slowly. Brother Ning, please help me. Mo Xiaowai stood up and said. Ning Chen nodded. He stood up and waved his hand. In a dazzling azure light, Genesis Supreme appeared, and a sharp aura spread out. Swish! Genesis Supreme moved, and there was no time to react to his sword. It was so fast that it was gone in the blink of an eye. When one turned around, Genesis Supreme had withdrawn his sword and vanished. Let's go. Ning Chen called out to the little girl. Oh. Reacted and hurriedly ran after him. Clang! In the room behind them, the sound of a string resounded. A silver thread appeared in Mo Xiaowai's hand and turned into a stream of light that sealed the wound on Hung Wan's face. A light veil flew up and covered her face. Mo Xiaowai withdrew his hand and revealed a smile. All right, your appearance will be restored in 3 days. Hung Wan suppressed the excitement in her heart and said with tears in her eyes, Thank you, Tower Master. Ha! Mo Xiaowai chuckled. The word, thank you, is too light. In order to restore your appearance, this Tower Master was tricked out of a lot of secret information by that young Master Ning. Hung Wan, you have to work seriously in the future and earn more money to make up for today's loss. Hung Wan smiled through her tears. Hung Wan will definitely not disappoint Tower Master. In the heaven room, was lying on the tea table in boredom and fiddling with the teacup. Ning Chen, do you think Sister Hung Wan's appearance can be restored? Ning Chen was standing in front of the window thinking about something. Hearing the little girl's question, he returned to his senses and said, Yes. How do you know? Asked in puzzlement. Tower Master Xiaoye is a businesswoman and won't do a losing business. Ning Chen calmly said. Since Mo Xiaowai had already paid the reward, it was impossible for him to work for nothing. A businesswoman would always haggle over the smallest details. Oh. Replied as if she didn't understand. Since it could be cured, the rest wasn't important. Ning Chen looked at the little girl and calmly said, I'm sorry. He owed this apology. He had once promised to take good care of her. However, he still abandoned her on Locket Mountain that day. Was startled and tears flashed in her eyes. Soon after, she smiled brilliantly and said, I forgive you. You haven't seen what your master's wife looks like, right? Ning Chen turned around and looked outside the window. No. Shook her head in surprise. She's called Ghost Woman, the current master of the underworld. She's very beautiful and kind, kinder than all humans. When she wakes up, you'll definitely fall in love with her. Ning Chen's deep eyes flashed with the brilliance of memories as he softly said. What's wrong with her? Didn't understand. She won't wake up for now. However, Master is doing his best to wake her up. Ning Chen turned around and tried to smile, but for some reason, he couldn't smile. Sensibly didn't continue asking. She got up and walked over to him. Her small hand held his big hand and she softly said, will work hard with you. Within the bright guest room, Mo Xiaowai sipped his wine and sighed inside. Every devil had a past they didn't want to talk about, and this person was the most special devil he had ever seen. Even though he had lost his heart, he still worked hard to keep his promise. Let's go, said Ning Chen in the sky guest room. Where to? Asked Mo Xing, to search for immortality, replied Ning Chen. The two of them walked out of the room hand in hand and went downstairs. They didn't say goodbye or exchange greetings. Life was just a passerby. Meeting was fate, and in the end, fate would leave. In front of Xiaoya Cheng and thousands of armed guards quickly ran over. Because of the silver-armored general's death, they surrounded the restaurant. Ding! The sound of a string rang out. In the next moment, blood blossomed from the hearts of the guards blocking the path and they fell down. A song of farewell sent off life knowing. The splendor of life was so dazzling when it faded away. The Xiaoya Tower's master used the most beautiful scene in the world to send off the guests of Xiaoya Cheng and the two figures gradually disappeared into the cold wind. In front of Xiaoya Cheng and blood dyed the ground. No one was able to stand. In the starry sky, Ning Chen didn't walk so quickly when he wasn't chasing after the immortal corpse. He brought with him as he walked through the air. This was the first time was enjoying the beautiful scenery of the starry sky. She let go of his hand and floated around on her own. Ning Chen calmly followed behind her. His expression didn't change at all. Er's foundation had once been cleansed by phoenix blood. Although her cultivation was still shallow, she was still not someone an ordinary Hotian expert could compare to. Ning Chen, hurry up! Turned around and shouted. Ning Chen nodded and quickened his pace to catch up. The starry sky was boundless. One couldn't see the end of it. Walking through it was like standing on a vast ocean. It was so small that it was difficult to see with the naked eye. After walking for a while, lay on Ning Chen's back and fell asleep. She became that heartless little girl again. Although the sword crafting villa in Central State wasn't the most powerful, it was hard for any other power to compare with them in terms of education. A sword crafting master who cared about the world used himself as an example to teach the future generations the word tolerance. Er's kindness became the only warmth around Ning Chen. Although it couldn't melt his demon heart, life knowing had to remember his promise. The little girl's hair hung in front of her and floated in the starry sky. Ning Chen gently pushed her hair behind his back. His footsteps became steadier so that the little girl could sleep more comfortably. A black figure flashed in the starry sky and quickly flew towards the depths of the red phoenix star region. That day, the huge hand that covered the sky appeared from a distant star. It was so powerful that it was shocking. If it wasn't for the distance, even he wouldn't have been able to escape unscathed. Master Mo, who was mentioned by the Dawn Moon Tower Master, was close to the level of a true immortal. Perhaps he could answer the question he had for a long time. As for the red phoenix star and the jade pool divine water, he didn't need to worry about it for the time being. Although he didn't know what happened, the phoenix body had indeed gone to the red phoenix star. That sword was cruel and merciless. It didn't seem like the style of the phoenix body, but it really appeared in front of him. He had absolute confidence in the phoenix body. Among the three bodies, the phoenix body was the most intelligent. In the heavens beyond heaven, where there were no emotional factors, the phoenix body was the most difficult to deal with. Even if he encountered an irresistible danger, the phoenix body, which was the fastest in the world, could at least protect his life. The promise of the three bodies was that even if he was trapped forever and living a life worse than death, he had to survive at all costs. Because, from the time when the three bodies were one, their lives no longer belonged to one body. In this life, unless the ghost girl woke up, the life knowing had to continue on the path. Ning Chen, how far is it? Yin had woken up. She used her hair to touch his face and asked in a sweet voice. Soon, Ning Chen said softly. When we reach the Mo planet, teach me how to use the sword, Yin continued. Okay, Ning Chen nodded and replied. In the depths of the distant Red Phoenix stellar region, an old man in a white robe sat cross-legged on a Tao platform on an enormous star filled with vitality. His entire body was coiled with seven-colored brilliance, and he possessed the bearing of an immortal, causing him to seem extremely extraordinary. Master Mo, the current master of the Mo planet, was the person whose cultivation was the closest to a true immortal in the entire Red Phoenix star region. Under the Taoist altar, famous cultivators sat quietly and listened to Master Mo's preaching. At this moment, on the Mo planet, an illusory fate appeared. It was different from the fate possessed by the dynasties and great sections. It was hazy and difficult to distinguish. It was indescribable, and even the supreme masters on the planet couldn't see it. On the Taoist altar, Master Mo opened his eyes and looked at the unusual aura in the sky. A brilliance that no one could understand flashed in his eyes. Chapter 613. In Mo planet, Ning Chen descended with Yin. The Yellow Spring's divine seal sealed away all the demonic aura. In his Dantian Qi Sea, only the Phoenix Origins cyclone was left spinning. A breeze blew past, and under the fluttering black hair, there was a slightly delicate face. Deep and dark eyes, no emotions could be seen. Ning Chen chose to seal his own strength, because Mo planet's master was the closest existence to a true immortal in Red Luan star field. If he didn't do so, his identity might be exposed. The two of them walked forward, passing by one big city after another. They observed the customs and heard about everything in the world. Mo planet valued martial arts, and martial artists could be seen everywhere. Even Xiantian experts were not rare. Of course, most of the Xiantian experts were in the fifth tribulation realm. Experts above the three disasters were still rare. After Ning Chen sealed his demonic aura, his cultivation dropped back to half supremacy. However, unless one was an expert above the supremacy realm, others still couldn't detect his cultivation. Little Yin was only at the 7th grade natal realm. Although the streets were filled with them, there wasn't much difference. The two of them headed west, keeping a low profile and calmly. Like many other martial artists, they headed towards Mo planet's Tao altar. Mo Mountain, EU Peak, Mortal Paradise. On a Tao altar, Mo planet's master was preaching. He was dressed in a white robe and had a celestial aura. Below him, experts from various great inheritances and even various big planets sat quietly, listening to Mo planet's master explain the path of cultivation. Cultivation of Qi has existed since ancient times. In the beginning of the primordial era, when the primordial era was first created, the heavens and earth were settled, and there were thousands of races. Among them, the gods, demons, ghosts and other races that were born in the primordial era were extremely powerful. Thousands of races prostrated themselves, and humans were one of them. This situation only changed when the first batch of Qi cultivators appeared. These Qi cultivators absorbed the brilliance of the sun and moon, and absorbed the spiritual Qi of heaven and earth, constantly strengthening themselves until they could fight against gods and demons. At this point, humans were no longer food for demons and ghosts. This batch of human ancestors were called immortals by the world. The 4 great immortal realms were created in this era. The lords of the East, West, South, and North were the most powerful. Among them, the Queen Mother of the West and the Lord of the East immortal realm were the most powerful. In this era, the only goal of cultivators is to become an immortal, to soar into the sky and not be enslaved by demons. Becoming an immortal has become everyone's greatest hope. In the ancient era, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth gradually decreased, and the immortal world was sealed. The path to the immortal world also disappeared, and cultivation became extremely difficult. If people wanted to ascend to the immortal world, they had to find a new path. Therefore, during this era, people cultivated the Tao. In the ancient era, the changes in heaven and earth suddenly intensified. Gods, devils, demons, ghosts, and other powerful races disappeared almost overnight. The four great immortal realms also collapsed for unknown reasons. People panicked and were at a loss. They didn't know what was going on. At this point, the immortal world no longer existed, and people could no longer become immortals. During this era, cultivation was more about finding the truth, so it was also called cultivation. After the ancient era, too much time had passed. The truth of the changes in the immortal world could no longer be found. People's goal of cultivation gradually changed from immortal cultivation, Tao cultivation, and cultivation to immortality and fighting for fame and fortune. The martial arts of the mortal world and chi cultivators were no longer clearly distinguishable. People lost faith and gradually sank into fame and fortune. That's why Yama King came to the world and personally created a new realm, dividing the universe into the inner world and the outer world. Does everyone know how many realms the path of cultivation is divided into? Asked Lord Mo while looking at the people below. Below the Tao platform, the experts of the great sects looked at each other. Among them, a young man answered, the three realms are the Hotian, Xiantian, and Treading Immortal realms. Lord Mo nodded slightly and said, for all living beings in the world to cultivate and comprehend the Tao, they indeed start from the Hotian Foundation establishment, go through the Xiantian baptism, and then treading immortal realms to reach the pinnacle. Everyone here is an overlord of a sect. You've overcome 5 tribulations, 3 disasters, and achieved the great perfection realm, becoming the supreme realm of the mortal world. However, at this point, Lord Mo changed the topic and continued, the reason why the supreme realm of the Xiantian Great Perfection Realm has the word mortal is because the Xiantian Great Perfection Realm has yet to break away from the category of mortals. 800 years of lifespan is a lifetime. On the path of cultivation, the first realm is the easiest. The second realm is several times more difficult. It requires extraordinary talent. If you want to achieve the Great Perfection Realm, you have to walk your own Tao and see the origin of the world. The third realm is also the most difficult realm. You have to continue walking down your own Tao based on the foundation of the Great Perfection Realm. You have to comprehend the essence of cultivation, make the great leap, and embark on the legendary path of immortal ascension, which is also known as the Treading Immortal Realm. This realm is also different from the first and second realms. The Treading Immortal Realm only has 3 minor realms, the void, the corporeal, and the true. The difference in strength between each realm is like heaven and earth. Simply put, the void realm can be found, the corporeal realm is hard to find, and the true realm is unknown. Only cultivators who have cultivated to this level can be considered to have truly embarked on the path of the strong. They can go to many forbidden places in the mortal world. At this point, Lord Mo, who had been preaching for several days, temporarily stopped and said calmly, everyone, do you have any other questions? Lord Mo, a royal consecrator of a prosperous dynasty said, are there only 3 realms in the path of cultivation? Is there a 4th realm in the world? Lord Mo shook his head and said calmly, at least, I've never seen one. Which realm is Lord Mo in now? Another overlord of a great sect asked. Late-stage corporeal realm. Lord Mo replied. Behind the experts of the various sects, Ning Qin held Er's hand and sat in an inconspicuous position. After everyone finished asking, he said, Lord Mo, can one come back to life after cultivating to the corporeal realm? Hearing this, a strange look flashed across Lord Mo's eyes and he said, no. What about the true realm? Ning Qin asked again. Maybe, maybe not. Lord Mo did not confirm nor deny, and he explained, I've never seen a true realm expert, so I can't measure the ability of a true realm expert. With Lord Mo's ability, how many years will it take for you to cultivate to the true realm? Ning Chen continued to ask. At least 100 years. Lord Mo replied. Ning Chen fell silent and did not ask again. The path of cultivation is rugged and difficult. I hope that the things I've taught these days will be helpful to everyone. In addition, I will accept the 9th disciple today. After passing the test, he can become my disciple, Lord Mo said calmly. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd below was in an uproar. The Lord of Mo planet had not accepted a disciple for 100 years, so why would he have the heart to accept a disciple today? Everyone present knew that the lowest cultivation level of the 8 disciples that Lord Mo had accepted before was at the Khanate Full Circle realm, and there were even a few who had stepped into the immortal realm. Their talent and achievements were extremely shocking. It could be said that as long as one could become Lord Mo's disciple, it meant that they were half a step into the immortal realm. As long as the opportunity came, it was very likely that they would enter the 3rd realm of cultivation that all cultivators dreamed of. I wonder what criteria Lord Mo will use to choose a disciple. Below the platform, a grand elder of a great sect whose cultivation level had reached the peak of the Khanate Full Circle asked. The same as 100 years ago. Temperament, strength, and luck. Lord Mo replied. I will use an illusory realm to test everyone. As long as anyone can escape from the illusory realm and take 10 moves from Qi Huan, they will pass the test. The first person to pass the test will also become my 9th disciple. Of course, if no one can take more than 10 moves before sunset, it will be arranged in order. The person who can last the longest will become my disciple. When everyone heard this, they were shocked. Not to mention the illusory realm, just Qi Huan's test alone was not something that ordinary people could pass. Qi Huan was the Lord of Mo planet's 5th disciple. His talent was unparalleled, and his strength had already stepped into the immortal realm. It was almost impossible for anyone below the immortal realm to take 10 moves from him. Qi Huan, get ready. On the platform, Lord Mo spoke. Yes, Master. A young man in green walked out and respectfully bowed. Ning Chen, can you beat him? Behind the crowd, Yin tugged at the person beside her and whispered. It might be possible to undo the seal, Ning Chen said softly. Then can you take 10 moves from him now? Yin asked again. I'm not sure. I'll only know after I fight, Ning Chen said honestly. Fight? Yin asked doubtfully. Fight. Ning Chen nodded. Everyone, I'm about to start. Those who are unwilling to become my disciple can leave now. On the platform, Lord Mo stood up and flipped his palm. Multicolored lights scattered from the sky and spread continuously, drawing out the evil thoughts and obsessions in everyone's hearts, turning them into inner demons that trapped their consciousness. Beside Ning Chen, Yin whose cultivation was not yet at the Xiantian realm, was not affected by the multicolored light. Her big eyes quietly looked at the people beside her without any worry. Grandpa Sword Master had said that illusory realms were inner demons. In this world, anyone could be trapped by inner demons, except for Ning Chen. That was because Ning Chen was a devil, a true devil. Devil, where did inner demons come from? Under the multicolored light, the 3 disasters, half-step venerables, and venerables' consciousness were trapped, unable to break free. After an unknown period of time, the first person finally broke free from his inner demons. However, he was defeated by Qi Huan in the 3rd move. Gradually, the second person, the third person, a total of 7 people walked out of their inner demons. However, no one passed Qi Huan's test. On the path of cultivation, the longer one walked, the more they suppressed their obsessions. Relatively speaking, it was easier for those with lower cultivation to pass the illusory realms test. Yin who was waiting at the side, dozed off. After a while, she fell asleep on the lap of the person beside her. Ning Chen slowly opened his eyes. There was no emotion in his eyes. He gently patted the little girl's back, not in a hurry to go up. It was true that he wanted to get close to Lord Mo, but he didn't want to stand out too much. After another hour, the eighth person stood up. It was a young man in golden battle clothes. His cultivation had already reached the mortal supremacy realm. He was extraordinarily valiant, and one could tell with a single glance that he was definitely a proud son of heaven from some great sect. Seeing the young man in golden battle clothes come up, Qi Huan's expression became more serious. He no longer held back. The fierce battle shook the mountains and the earth within 100 zhang radius. Formation runes flickered continuously, blocking the shockwaves of the battle. Move after move, heaven and earth shook. Until the eighth move, the young man in golden battle clothes was defeated by the suppression of his cultivation. However, he was still the one who lasted the longest. Time passed, and the next dozen people didn't last more than 8 moves. A day's time gradually passed. The sun set in the west, and the time limit was not far away. After the experts of various sects, who had slept for several hours, finally woke up. She straightened her body in a daze and rubbed her eyes. When she saw the person beside her, she didn't react at first. A moment later, her body shook, and her face revealed a trace of disbelief. "You haven't gone up yet?" "I'll go now," Ning Chen calmly replied. He stood up and walked forward step by step. Chapter 614. In front of the platform at Imo Mountain Ziyu Peak, Zhi Ming walked over. Behind him, the other cultivators who had just woken up didn't look too surprised. This was already the 47th cultivator. Other than the young man in gold, the others couldn't last more than 5 moves. The time limit was almost up. It was hard to change the result. "Please." Seeing the young man in front of him, Qi Huan reached out his hand and said politely, "Please." Ning Chen replied and waved his right hand. Amidst the green light, Taisher's blade appeared and slowly descended. When the divine weapon of Taoism appeared, Sword Will rumbled. The moment he held the sword, the expressions of all the cultivators present changed. A completely different aura was emitted from Ning Chen. After one step, the person in front of them disappeared. With a clang, the palm hit the blade of the sword. The sword chi scattered and shook violently. The power of the sword shocked everyone, but the sword suddenly changed direction. It was so fast that it was hard to distinguish. Qi Huan's expression became serious. He focused on dealing with it and used his advantage in cultivation to suppress the speed. In the blink of an eye, the attack and defense were too fast for the eyes to take in. Before he could react, 7 moves had already passed. Unwilling to let it end like this, Qi Huan shouted and the true essence around him activated the power of heaven and earth. Endless air currents gathered and forcefully blocked the blade of the sword. The instant Lin Yun's sword was restrained, a shocking palm surged out. The might of the palm was unstoppable, not showing any mercy at all. Seeing this, Zhi Ming let go of the sword in his hand and rushed out to avoid the palm power. Then, he rushed back and grabbed the sword again. The moment Qi Huan regained his qi, he broke through the barrier of true essence. His exquisite control over his sword caused the eyes of the experts from the various sects to flicker continuously. It turned out that the sword could be so strong. When the sword was in front of him, Qi Huan regained his qi and blocked the blade with true essence again. The 9th move appeared. The palm essence condensed the power of the wind and clouds in all directions. The unavoidable move swept out again. However, Zhi Ming's expression didn't change. He turned his steps and the light of the water flickered. He quickly merged with the shadow body art and used the wind move to avoid the blade of the palm. Seeing this, Qi Huan's eyes narrowed. After the 9th move, the 10th move appeared. He didn't hold back at all. The shocking palm strike created a strange phenomenon in the void. A green lotus appeared between the heaven and earth, and the heaven and earth within 100 feet of it collapsed instantly. The formation runes flickered, and the might of the celestial trampling was undoubtedly displayed. Formless sword. Knowing his destiny and calming his mind, he concentrated his sword on a single point and cut open a path of survival amidst the raging waves. Another sword followed after the first. The sky-severing sword followed the same trajectory and separated the world-shocking palm. Ning Chen's body slid several feet away before he managed to stabilize himself. Blood spurted out of his mouth. Thanks for letting me win. After 10 moves, Ning Chen wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth and put away his sword. Qi Huan nodded. His cold expression eased a lot. He bowed politely and turned to leave. It was a shocking battle that reached the pinnacle of martial arts and the pinnacle of the sword. It was brilliant beyond compare, causing the experts from the great sects to be unable to recover from their shock for a long time. Your name, Mo Zhu said from the platform. Ning Chen. From today onwards, you are my 9th personal disciple, said Mo Zhu calmly. Ning Chen bowed, not saying a word. Below the platform, the golden-clothed young man clenched his fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds. A vicious look flashed in his eyes, but it was well concealed. Now that Mo Zhu's 9th personal disciple had been decided, everyone congratulated him and left. Mo Zhu glanced at his 9th personal disciple. His expression didn't change much. He nodded and disappeared in a flash of multicolored light. 9th junior apprentice brother, come with me. Qi Huan walked up with a gentle expression. Yes. Ning Chen nodded. He waved at the girl not far away and followed. Who is this child? Asked Qi Huan in surprise. My benefactor's descendant, said Ning Chen. Qi Huan nodded slightly and didn't ask any more questions. He continued to lead the way. Mo Mountain was like a paradise on earth. It wasn't surrounded by towering mountains. Instead, it was more like a broken mountain range with many smaller peaks around it. There were already people living in the 8 peaks around Whispering Peak. Ning Chen was brought to the 9th peak and arranged a residence. There was a dense bamboo forest on the 9th peak. In front of the bamboo forest was a house made of bamboo. It was very spacious, and it wasn't inferior to the residences of the world's nobles. 9th junior apprentice brother, Master might summon you in 2 days to teach you a cultivation method. Before that, you should rest well, said Qi Huan softly. Thank you. Ning Chen nodded. After settling the former, Qi Huan didn't stay any longer and returned to his 5th peak. Yin sat on a small stool and kicked her legs back and forth. She asked, Ning Chen, does Mo Zhu really know how to revive the dead? At the very least, he's the most likely person, said Ning Chen calmly. Oh, said Yin softly. After tidying up the room, Ning Chen walked out of the bamboo house and looked at the bamboo forest in front of the house. He thought for a moment and waved his hand. A bamboo tree flew over. Ning Chen looked it up and down and flipped it over. He formed a sword with his fingers and cut it down the middle. Then, he cut off the branches and leaves on it. When Yin saw this, she curiously ran forward and stood to the side to watch. What are you doing? Asked Yin, puzzled. I'm making a sword for you, replied Ning Chen. Bamboo? Yin was surprised. Your cultivation is still low. A sword made of divine materials is too heavy and doesn't suit you, said Ning Chen as he cut the bamboo tree. Oh, replied Yin softly. She stood to the side and watched quietly. She wondered what her first sword would look like. Before long, the bamboo tree in Ning Chen's hand had been cut into the shape of a sword. There didn't seem to be anything special about it. It doesn't look good. Yin pouted unhappily. Wait. Ning Chen replied softly. His sword finger cut across his left palm. Blood immediately dripped down and dyed the entire green bamboo sword blade red. The girl was startled. Just as she was about to say something, she was shocked by the scene in front of her. On the green bamboo sword, a red flame rose. The blood and the bamboo sword slowly fused together. The entire sword blade gradually turned from green to red. After several breaths, the flames scattered and the red sword reappeared. The exquisite sword shape didn't lose any of its sharpness. With a flash of light, the wound on Ning Chen's hand healed. He handed the red sword to the girl and calmly said, "Do you like it?" Took the red sword. Her big eyes were shining and she smiled like a blooming flower. She nodded and said, "I like it. No matter what happens, you can't leave this sword by your side. Do you understand?" Ning Chen reminded her. "Okay," replied obediently. "I've already told you how to practice the sword. You have to work hard and persevere. You can't be lazy. There are no shortcuts in the world. It's the same for practicing the sword. Don't think about taking shortcuts. Otherwise, you'll end up hurting yourself." Ning Chen seriously taught her. "Okay." Nodded. "Okay, it's getting late. Rest first. Tomorrow morning, we'll start practicing the sword." Ning Chen said. "Okay." Replied again. She turned around and went back to her room to wash up and rest. Ning Chen stood outside the bamboo hut and looked at the other 8 peaks in the distance and the legacy peak in the center. A trace of thought flashed through his deep eyes. Master Mo's lecture had allowed him to understand many things that he didn't know before. Especially the explanation of the 3 realms of the treading immortal realm, the illusory, the corporeal, and the true realms. It had given him a lot of inspiration. Among the experts of this realm he had met before, Mu Chang'e and Nu Chang were undoubtedly in the illusory realm. As for Chao Tianqi, because he had broken the Netherworld King's barrier, he had been severely injured and wasn't in his peak condition. It was difficult to determine his cultivation level. As for Xian Luo, based on the situation of the battle that day, he was at least in the early stage of the corporeal realm. Before he was sealed, he must have been even stronger. With his current strength, after the seal was removed, he should be able to fight on equal footing with an early-stage illusory realm expert like Qi Huan. If he faced an intermediate-stage illusory realm expert, he might have to pay a heavy price. However, once the divine seal of the underworld was removed, it would be difficult for his demonic aura to hide from Master Mo. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, he absolutely couldn't make this choice. The moon set and the sun rose. A night passed. In the morning, got up and practiced the sword. Every move was the simplest foundation. Ning Chen stood at the side and watched. When her sword deviated, he reminded her. "Ninth junior brother, Master has summoned you to Legacy Peak." At this moment, a familiar voice sounded in the 9th peak and entered Ning Chen's ears. When Ning Chen heard this, a faint strange light flashed in his eyes. He looked at the little girl who was practicing the sword and said, I'm going to Legacy Peak. I'll be back soon. Continue practicing here." Turned around and wiped the sweat on her face. She said in a delicate voice, "Okay." After giving his instructions, Ning Chen didn't delay any longer. With a move of his feet, he turned into a ray of light and flew towards Legacy Peak. On Mo Xing platform, Master Mo, who was dressed in a white robe, sat cross-legged. Below him, 5 young men and women stood quietly. Qi Huan stood on the second seat on the right. When he saw Ning Chen walk over, he nodded slightly. "Greetings, Master." Ning Chen bowed respectfully. "Old 9, what do you want to do after joining my sect?" On the platform, Master Mo asked. "Longevity." Ning Chen lowered his head and said. Master Mo nodded and said, "I have 7 techniques and 2 scriptures." Among them, your 7 senior brothers and senior sisters have already learned 7 of them. Your 8th senior sister has also achieved some small success in the lunar scripture. Only the last scripture, the solar scripture, hasn't been cultivated by anyone yet. Are you willing to take it? Thank you, Master, for your teachings. Ning Chen replied. Only then did Master Mo reveal a gratified smile. With a wave of his hand, a rainbow-colored light fell, and an extremely complicated cultivation technique entered Ning Chen's spiritual sense. After a while, Master Mo stopped and said, "Cultivate well. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask your 5 senior brothers and sisters." "Yes." Ning Chen softly said. "You may leave." Master Mo waved his hand and said, "Yes." Ning Chen bowed again and immediately stood up to leave. "You may leave too." Master Mo calmly said. "This disciple will take his leave." The 5 young men and women bowed respectfully and left together. After the 6 of them left, Master Mo once again closed his eyes on the platform, hiding all his thoughts. After leaving Legacy Peak, Qi Huan looked at the silver-clothed woman beside him and reminded her, "8th junior sister, your cultivation speed has been too fast recently." The silver-clothed woman stopped and softly said, "Thank you for your reminder, 5th senior brother. I will pay attention. Your strength attribute is the opposite of 9th junior brother's. Perhaps you can ask him for help." Qi Huan suggested. The silver-clothed woman fell silent. After a long time, she softly sighed and said, "The current him is too weak. It's impossible for him to contend against the lunar energy in my body." Qi Huan's face revealed a trace of emotion as he said, "I really didn't expect that you would be the last one to enter the sect, but your cultivation speed is the fastest. Perhaps, this is fate." The silver-clothed woman responded and immediately walked forward. Chapter 6:15. Ning Chen returned to the 9th peak of Mo Mountain. Yin was still practicing her sword in front of the bamboo forest, sweat dripping down her face. Every move she made was methodical. Ning Chen stood quietly to the side, not bothering her. Not long after, 2 figures came together. One was dressed in green and had an extraordinary temperament. The other was a woman dressed in silver and had silver hair. She was so beautiful that it was hard to look at her directly. Ning Chen was no stranger to the man in green. It was Qi Huan. However, he only knew that the woman in silver was called Ling Luozhen. She was the 8th disciple of Master Mo, 9th junior brother. Qi Huan greeted him with a smile. Ling Luozhen looked at the young man in front of her, and the coldness in her eyes eased a little. She nodded in greeting. Yin who was practicing her swordsmanship, turned her head to take a curious look when Ning Chen raised his hand and knocked on her head. "Ah!" Yin cried out in pain. She covered her head with her hands and pouted so hard that one could hang an oil bottle from her mouth. "Don't get distracted. Continue practicing," Ning Chen said calmly. "Fine, I'll do it." Yin mumbled and continued practicing, not daring to get distracted again. Ling Luozhen noticed the red sword in the little girl's hand, and her beautiful eyes flashed with surprise. It was a blood-refined weapon. "9th junior brother, can we talk in private?" Qi Huan said softly after watching for a while. "Okay." Ning Chen nodded. He glanced at Yin and walked to the other side. The 3 stopped 100 steps away. Qi Huan looked at the person in front of him and said seriously, "9th junior brother, let me give you a piece of advice. You must build your foundation step by step on the path of cultivation. Remember not to be impatient. This is especially true for the Sun Sutra that Master passed to you." Ning Chen narrowed his eyes. Qi Huan seemed to be implying something. "In a few days, Master will probably send you to the Feng Shui forbidden area to train. At that time, he will send one of the 5 of us to go with you. If possible, it's best to let your 8th senior sister go with you, Qi Huan said softly. Ning Chen looked at the silver-haired woman. He still couldn't guess what was going on. 9th junior brother, I owe you a favor, Ling Luozhen said softly. Ning Chen thought about it and nodded. Can I know why? I can't say. Qi Huan shook his head and said, anyway, remember what I said to you today. I hope you never need to know the truth. After that, the two of them didn't stay any longer. They said goodbye and walked down the mountain. 9th junior apprentice brother, be careful of everyone in the sect, including us. Just as they were about to leave, Ling Luozhen turned and seriously warned him. Ning Chen frowned. What was going on? Qi Huan and Ling Luozhen's words were too strange. They seemed to be warning him about something, but they didn't dare to say it out loud. Ning Chen, I'm hungry. Not far away, finally couldn't take it anymore after piercing the 10th bamboo into a hornet's nest. She jogged over and said in a delicate voice. Hearing the little girl's words, Ning Chen was stunned and did not react in time. I'm hungry, called out again. Ning Chen came back to his senses. He flipped his right hand, and his phoenix vitality rose up. He was about to pass it to the little girl. I don't want to. Took a step back and dodged. She pouted and said, Grandpa Sword Master said that if I don't eat, I won't grow up. He lied to you, Ning Chen said calmly. Grandpa Sword Master wouldn't lie to me. I don't care. I want to eat. I want to eat. Hugged his arm and shook it with all her might. Ning Chen frowned again. How was he supposed to find food for this girl in this place? Let's go to the back of the mountain. Dragged him towards the back of the mountain. Ning Chen didn't refuse and allowed the little girl to drag him to the back of the mountain. The path to the 9th summit was rugged and difficult to walk on. After walking for a while, didn't want to walk on her own anymore. She climbed onto Ning Chen's back and refused to get down. You've already grown up. Ning Chen said softly. You can't be like a little girl anymore. Smiled innocently and hugged him tightly with her arms, refusing to get down. Perhaps it was because only had one relative by her side, but after they left the inner world, she became exceptionally reliant on Ning Chen. She was just like Ning Chen when he was still young. She always had an indescribable admiration for the seniors who protected her under their wings. The reflection in the depths of Ning Chen's memories made him unwilling to continue talking about it. He carried the little girl and walked towards the back of the mountain. There was a primitive forest in the back of the mountain. There were no traces of people, and it looked very quiet. When they reached the dense forest, jumped down. As she walked, she looked around curiously. The dense forest was quiet. Other than the occasional bird flying past, there were almost no other living beings in sight. The two of them walked forward. After about an hour, they heard the sound of flowing water not far away. Ning Chen walked over and looked at the small river in front of him. With a wave of his hand, he shook out a few palm-sized fish. Go and pick up some dry wood, Ning Chen said. Okay. Responded and jogged to the side to pick up the dry branches that had fallen to the ground. After a while, the dry wood was picked up. Ning Chen started a fire and placed the cleaned fish on the fire. Then, he waited patiently. After you're done eating, go down the mountain and buy some things you like to eat, Ning Chen instructed softly. Okay. Nodded vigorously and replied. Don't leave your sword, Ning Chen reminded her again. Okay. Delicately replied. A quarter of an hour later, several small fishes were roasted one after another. Ning Chen passed the roasted fishes to the little girl, and then quietly watched from the side. You're not eating. Took a bite and couldn't clearly say anything. I'm not hungry. You can eat, said Ning Chen calmly. Oh. Finished one in a few bites and picked up another one, eating it happily. Human. The crackling sound of the bonfire was extremely clear in this quiet ancient forest. At this moment, in the depths of the dense forest, the earth rumbled and trembled. A figure rushed out. The evil image behind him was incomparably huge, and it was extremely shocking. Ning Chen's expression sank. His figure flashed, and he condensed Yuan into a sword finger to block that figure. With a clang, his sword chi was blocked. This person had actually used his physical body to block Ning Chen's sword. In the next moment, the evil image condensed and opened its mouth, swallowing the world. Ignoring the person in front of it, it swallowed the girl. You're asking for death. Killing intent filled Ning Chen's eyes, and a devilish aura filled his heart. Ning Chen's eyes instantly became incomparably deep. With a wave of his hand, Taisha appeared, and his sword cut through the air. With a loud bang, both sides took a few steps back. Their expressions became serious. Human cultivator, said the man gloomily. Leave first, said Ning Chen as he glanced at the girl. Be careful. Obediently replied and then ran out of the forest. Brat, are you the disciple of that old monster from Legacy Peak? Asked the man. So what if I am? So what if I'm not? Said Ning Chen coldly. Arrogant. Whether you are or not, you will become my meal. The man moved once more, and the evil image behind him moved with him. The powerful pressure did not seem to belong to a human. Ning Chen swung his sword to meet it. Intense rumbles continuously rang out in the forest. Fist against sword, their might shook the heavens. The ninth peak rumbled and the trees around it collapsed one after another. At that moment, on the platform of Legacy Peak, Lord Mo opened his eyes and looked at the ninth peak. He did not say a word, but the world around him had already changed. Dark clouds tumbled in the sky above the ninth peak, and the pressure suddenly dropped. The shocking pressure immediately attracted the gazes of the 5 disciples from the other peaks. On the 5th and 8th peaks, Qi Huan and Ling Luozhen looked at the changes in the ninth peak, and a glint flashed through their eyes. Their master was even stronger than 100 years ago. On the ninth peak, the man in the middle of the battle also felt the pressure from the sky. With a cold snort, he took a step back and quickly retreated into the depths of the forest. Ning Chen sheathed his sword, and a cold light flickered in his deep eyes. He did not expect that there would be a primal chaos beast on the ninth peak. The waters of Mo clan seemed to be much deeper than he had imagined. After a moment of thought, Ning Chen collected his thoughts and walked out of the forest. In just a few moves, the dense forest had already been destroyed to the point that it was unbearable to look at. It was a complete mess everywhere. Crack. Not long after he walked, a soft sound came from under his feet. Ning Chen stopped and looked at his feet. Then, he bent down and picked up the broken stone slab. He flipped over the stone slab. The words on it had been eroded by the wind and rain. However, he could still recognize them. The stone slab was a tombstone. There were 4 words carved in the middle of the tombstone, Hua Yang's tomb. However, the strange thing was that the person who had erected the tombstone at the bottom right corner was also Hua Yang. Ning Chen frowned. It was really strange for someone to erect a tombstone for themselves. There was only one explanation for this. This person called Hua Yang already knew that he was about to die when he erected the tombstone. This person called Hua Yang must have an extraordinary identity if he could ascend the ninth peak. He might even be the previous master of the ninth peak. Ning Chen looked around but did not find any traces of a corpse. He scanned the area with his divine sense and walked a few steps to the left. With a wave of his hand, a green light flashed and a jade pendant flew out. The jade pendant was warm and cool. The silk wrapped around the jade pendant had been eroded by time. Only the jade pendant was as smooth as before. Strange. Ning Chen murmured and looked in the direction where Hun Dun disappeared. Was it related to him? Outside the forest, was waiting anxiously. When she saw Ning Chen walk out, she heaved a sigh of relief. Are you okay? Ran forward and asked with concern. I'm fine, Ning Chen said softly. Who is he? Was puzzled. He's not human. Ning Chen said seriously, he's a Hun Dun, a ferocious beast among ferocious beasts. He's very powerful and can devour everything. Shock flashed across Er's face. Ferocious beast? Why was there a ferocious beast on the 9th peak? Let's go back first, Ning Chen said softly. Okay. Nodded and took his hand. They walked forward together. At the same time, the young man in yellow on the 3rd peak retracted his gaze. He walked to a secret room not far away without saying a word. He pushed open the stone door and walked in. In the dark secret chamber, the light of incense could be faintly seen. Looking through the light of the incense, one could see that there were memorial tablets one after another. At the end of the memorial tablets, the incense in front of a memorial tablet had burned out. Under the last bit of light, the name on the tablet was eye-catching. Huayang. Chapter 6:16. On the 6th month of Mo Mountain's 9th peak, Ning Chen's cultivation of the Sun Sutra had reached a certain level. Spiritual qi within 100 miles surged rapidly into the demon's body. In an instant, yin and yang resonated. On the 8th peak, the supreme yin qi in Ling Luozhen's body circulated on its own. It shone with a cold light and showed signs of breaking through again. Ling Luozhen's expression changed. She reversed her cultivation technique and forcefully suppressed the rising aura around her. On the platform of Legacy Peak, Master Mo opened his eyes and looked at the 9th peak. A faint light flashed in his eyes. Although he was slower than the others, he did not disappoint him. Come to Legacy Peak. I have something to tell you, Master Mo said. Yes. On the various peaks, the figures respectfully accepted the order. On the 9th peak, Ning Chen also opened his eyes. His figure flashed as he rushed towards Legacy Peak. Not long after, the 6 of them arrived together and waited for orders. Old 9, it's time for you to go to the Feng Shui Forbidden Area to train. There are many dangers here. You can choose a senior brother or sister to accompany you, Master Mo said calmly on the platform. Ning Chen's eyes darkened. The other 5 also looked solemn and did not say anything. Among the 5 of them, Qi Huan saw Ling Luozhen, whose slender hands had turned white, and sighed softly in his heart. This trip to the Feng Shui Forbidden Area might be 8th junior sister's last chance. After weighing the pros and cons for a moment, Ning Chen raised his head and looked at the silver-haired woman in front of him. He said calmly, I choose 8th senior sister. Hearing this, Mo Zhu nodded and said, Old 8, accompany Old 9 on this trip. Yes. Ling Luozhen loosened her hands and stepped forward respectfully. The 2 of you can leave when you're ready. There's no need to say goodbye to me. Also, Old 3, Old 5, Old 6, and Old 7, continue to work on entering the Western Celestial World, Master Mo said again. Yes. Qi Huan and the other 3 bowed and accepted the order. On the side, Ning Chen's eyes flashed when he heard the words Celestial World again. It disappeared in a moment, and he carefully hid it. All of you, leave. Master Mo waved his hand and said calmly, all of you, leave. The 6 of them bowed respectfully and left together. Outside Legacy Peak, Ling Luozhen stopped and waited for the black-robed young man behind her to walk up to her. She said softly, 9th junior brother, thank you. Ning Chen nodded and said, Senior sister Ling Luo, when are we leaving? Anytime, Ling Luo replied. Then please wait for a moment, Senior sister Ling Luo. I need to return to the 9th summit first, Ning Chen said. Ling Luozhen frowned and said, you want to take care of that child? Can't I? Ning Chen asked calmly. It's not that you can't, but the feng shui forbidden area is full of dangers. One more person is one more burden. Think carefully, Ling Luozhen said seriously. Ning Chen was silent. After a moment, he slowly said, I promised that I wouldn't leave her alone again. Once he finished speaking, Ning Chen did not say anything else and walked towards the 9th summit. On the 9th summit, the little girl was practicing her sword. Ning Chen walked over and pressed down on the tip of her sword. He said softly, let's go. Where are we going? Blinked her big eyes and asked. It's a geomancy forbidden area, Ning Chen replied. Oh. She grabbed him with her small hand and left with him. An hour later, 2 big and 1 small figure left Mo Mountain, which was surrounded by 9 summits, and headed towards an unknown place in the west. The geomancy forbidden area was one of the 4 forbidden areas of Mo Gate. Today, the twins of Mo Gate's 8th summit and 9th summit would enter the forbidden area again. The moment they stepped in, the strange and colorful scenery made them unconsciously raise their guard. Faint lights flashed in the dark surroundings from time to time, and the yin qi was oppressive. Be careful. Anything in the geomancy forbidden area can be fatal, Ling Luozhen reminded. Okay. Ning Chen replied softly. Red light flashed around his body and protected the little girl beside him. The spiritual qi in the forbidden area was extremely dense. Not long after they entered, Ning Chen felt the Sun Sutra's cyclone in his body spin rapidly, and his power rose steadily. Ling Luozhen was the same. The lunar aura spun on its own and kept strengthening. Whoosh! Suddenly, a strange light flashed past. It was so fast that it was hard to react to. In an instant, there was a light-tearing sound, and a tear appeared on Ning Chen's right sleeve. The power of geomancy was shocking. Panicked. When she saw that Ning Chen was not injured, she heaved a sigh of relief. Whoosh! At this moment, another strange light flashed past at a faster speed and swept toward the little girl. With a bang, the power of geomancy crashed into the protective phoenix vitality. The specks of starlight scattered and disappeared. Be careful. At this moment, Ling Luozhen, who was walking in front, changed her expression and quickly reminded him. In the depths of the geomancy forbidden area, faint lights appeared one after another. There were hundreds, thousands, and endless, and they broke through the air. At this critical moment, Ning Chen pulled and took a step forward. His body was like an illusion, and he moved quickly. Ling Luozhen also used the lunar aura. The protective genuine qi rose and blocked the power of geomancy. The dense attack lasted for a dozen breaths, and then gradually weakened. The 2 figures flashed and rushed forward. Not long after, the scene changed again. The heaven and earth rumbled, and a spring gushed out of the ground. The cold air whistled, and an ice statue rose from the ground. It was like a mountain, and it was shocking. With a boom, the statue swung its giant fist down. It was earth-shattering, and the earth kept cracking, spreading dozens of miles away. The murderous intent that followed was frightening. Ning Chen took the little girl and dodged again. However, a gust of wind whistled behind them. The cold wind turned into a black storm and came at them. Seeing this, Ling Luozhen took a step forward and pushed the statue away. Then, she gathered the lunar aura and blocked the black storm. The dangerous geomancy forbidden area showed its sharpest fangs. Danger came with every step, and it was driving them crazy. Go and deal with that statue. The storm roared, and its power became more and more shocking. Ling Luozhen used the power of stepping celestial to block the storm and shouted. Ning Chen nodded. He turned around and jumped into the air. Taishe appeared and slashed down with his sword. The majestic sword light spanned hundreds of feet and drew a bloody line across the sky. The sword's power was shocking, and the void shattered one after another. The statue put its hands up, and with a huge tremor, its feet sank dozens of feet into the ground. One of its arms was shattered, unable to withstand the extreme sword power. Roar! The statue roared and punched out with its right fist again. The air surged as it crashed into Ning Chen. Ning Chen used Taishe to block it, but he felt a huge force and was sent flying dozens of feet away. Ling Luozhen looked back, and her expression froze. With a flip of her hand, a white silk ribbon shot out and grabbed Ning Chen's body. "Are you okay?" Ling Luozhen asked as she pulled him back. "I'm fine," Ning Chen replied as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Ling Luozhen nodded. Looking at the statue in the black storm, she no longer hesitated. She opened her eyes, and they instantly turned silver. The power of stepping celestial rapidly rose, and a terrifying aura surged out. Restrained by the celestial treading force, the demonic golem's figure stopped, and so did the black storm. Ling Luozhen let out a soft cry, and her long silver hair fluttered behind her. She opened and closed her palms, and an incomparably tyrannical power swept out, instantly destroying the world. An instant later, the majestic lunar aura drowned out the statue and the black storm. The world returned to calm, and a dark scene appeared. "We can't stay here for long. Let's keep going," Ling Luozhen said and then rushed forward. "Okay." Ning Chen nodded and followed after him. To the side, glanced at Ling Luozhen and softly asked, "Ning Chen, how come you can't even beat that big guy?" "I don't have much phoenix origin in my body. It's not easy to recover, so I'll save as much as I can," Ning Chen replied. "Oh, then let her fight," straightforwardly replied. In the depths of the Red Luan star field, tens of thousands of li away from Mo planet, an ancient planet floated. The Red Luan star was one of the oldest planets in the world. It was so old that it was untraceable. The last impression people had of it was the legendary ruler of the Western celestial world, the Queen Mother of the West. The rulers of the four celestial worlds were all extremely powerful. Among them, the ruler of the Eastern celestial world and the Queen Mother of the West were the most powerful. In addition, the Queen Mother of the West also possessed a supreme treasure that even the other three rulers did not possess, the undying peach tree. Due to the existence of the Queen Mother of the West, the Red Luan star had once flourished for a period of time. However, after the collapse of the four celestial worlds, it gradually declined and gradually disappeared from people's attention. On the huge planet, there were many great sections. Vaguely, in a secret realm that was passed down from generation to generation, it was like spring all year round, and the scenery was exceptionally beautiful. In the depths of the secret realm, there were many palaces that were majestic and solemn. They were not inferior to the palaces of the mortal world. In front of one of the palaces, a red-clothed figure had calm eyes, but there was a trace of confusion that could not be concealed. "Prince Consort, the princess invites you over," a maidservant walked up and respectfully said. The red-clothed figure collected his thoughts, nodded, and stepped forward to follow. At the same time, in the palace at the center of the secret realm, a purple-clothed man stood quietly. Although his appearance was still young, his hair was already dyed white. He had an extremely terrifying aura that caused the world to tremble. Below the palace stood a beautiful woman in a long dress. Her appearance was flawless, and her temperament was noble and extraordinary. "Red Luan, have you decided?" the purple-clothed man on the throne asked. "Yes." The woman nodded and calmly said. "The phoenix is naturally noble and proud. It can't be bewitched for long. If he recovers his memory, have you thought about the consequences?" the purple-clothed man continued. "Since I have made this decision, I have absolute confidence," the woman replied. The purple-clothed man nodded and did not ask any more questions. He looked outside the palace and softly said, "Red Luan, the Western celestial world is about to open. This time, we must retrieve the sacred object left behind by our ancestors." Hearing this, a trace of light flashed through the woman's eyes. She slowly said, "I will not disappoint you. The purple-clothed man withdrew his gaze and nodded. Go, I will wait for your good news. When the sacred object returns, it will be the day of your wedding. Yes. The woman respectfully bowed and turned to leave. At this moment, in the distant Xiaoyachang restaurant, the woman who was playing the zither suddenly trembled. The strings of the zither cut her finger, and drops of scarlet blood dripped down and dyed the zither red. The same name, but different circumstances. Princess Hong Wuan won and lost because of Hong Wuan. Chapter 617. In the feng shui forbidden land, black hurricanes howled, and the sky and earth surged. The dangerous land made it difficult for people to move. The extreme yang energy in Ning Chen's body was also rapidly growing under the nourishment of the majestic spiritual qi, and his cultivation progressed rapidly. Seeing this, Ling Luozhen became more cautious about his safety, and blocked all the dangers by herself. However, compared to Ning Chen, the one who benefited the most was Yin Er. In just a few days, her cultivation had reached the peak of heaven's reach, and she could enter the next realm at any time. A 15-year-old peak Ho Tian was beyond imagination and rare. Seeing that Yin Er's cultivation showed signs of breaking through to the Khanate realm, Ning Chen suppressed the girl's rising realm. A 15-year-old peak Ho Tian was acceptable, but a 15-year-old Khanate was too early. It was not a good thing to reach the sky in a single step. If it affected one's foundation, it would not be worth it. In the dim world, the three continued to move forward. The surrounding raging waves surged endlessly, and the extremely bad environment increased the danger of the forbidden land. Suddenly, two black hurricanes attacked, blocking the way forward again. Ling Luozhen stopped and turned her palm to open a path. The road appeared, and the three did not hesitate and quickly passed through. Time passed by, and the road ahead became more and more difficult. There was no turning back in the feng shui forbidden land, and only by moving forward could there be a chance to get out. Ling Luozhen looked at the young man beside her with hesitation. There was an area in the feng shui forbidden land that could help her suppress her cultivation, but it was too dangerous. With old Ninth's cultivation, it was difficult to go too far inside. However, if they separated, she would not be able to save him if he encountered danger in the forbidden land. After hesitating for a while, Ling Luozhen looked at him and said softly, "Ninth junior brother, I need to go to a place. Come with me." Ning Chen stopped and nodded after a moment. Yin Er gently squeezed his hand and whispered, "Could it be dangerous?" "I know." Ning Chen nodded and transmitted his voice, "No matter what happens later, stay close to me and don't let go." "Yes." Yin Er nodded vigorously and replied. In the depths of the feng shui forbidden land, there was a dangerous land surrounded by hurricanes. Waves of fire rolled, and the scene of burning the sky made people feel indescribable fear even before they got close. Not long after, the three walked over. Ling Luozhen turned her palm to shake off the hurricane and opened a path. As soon as the three of them walked in, a monstrous wave of fire slammed down. It was dozens of feet tall, obscuring everything in front of them. Ling Luozhen took a step forward and silver light rose around her. She turned her palm and condensed the moon, using her own strength to resist the heavenly might. With a bang, the waves of fire scattered in all directions, turning into a rain of fire that fell from the sky. The three of them continued forward. The rain of fire did not touch their bodies, and they moved away silently. The sea of fire was boundless. The deeper they went, the more terrifying the temperature became. At the center of the fire waves, the entire space started to distort, unable to withstand the might of the flames. If you find that you can't hold on any longer, stop immediately. Although you've cultivated the Sun Sutra, you haven't cultivated it for long. You won't be able to resist the flames here, Ling Luozhen reminded him. Ning Chen nodded and calmly agreed. After reminding Zhang Xian, Ling Luozhen didn't say anything else and focused on advancing forward. The fiery world in front of him was burning the sky and boiling the sea. Everywhere was scarlet red. The temperature was shockingly high, and the ground was charred. Ning Chen used his phoenix origin to protect the little girl, cautiously resisting the waves of fire coming from all directions. The phoenix bathed in fire, undergoing nirvana and rebirth. Putting aside his cultivation, Ning Chen's ability to withstand flames was unparalleled in the world. Ling Luozhen gradually realized that Zhang Xian was unusual, and the worry in her heart lessened. After a few hundred feet, layers of flames surged and roared in front of them. The terrifying might made it difficult for them to take even half a step forward. Ling Luozhen stopped and looked at the reddish-black flames in the depths of the sea of fire. A trace of seriousness flashed in her eyes. "Ninth junior brother, I'll go in first. Be careful. Don't force yourself." After saying that, Ling Luozhen's moon force rose to the extreme, protecting her as she rushed into the center of the sea of fire. "Ning Chen, are we going in?" asked Dean, fearfully from the side. Ning Chen looked ahead and said softly, "Let's go in. It's fine. Don't be afraid." Yin nodded and unconsciously tightened her grip on Zhang Xian's hand. The two of them continued forward. Waves of fire came crashing down with shocking might. Ning Chen focused, and the phoenix origin around him shone brightly, blocking the flames that came close to him. This formless, ownerless flame had a might comparable to the divine flame of the underworld king back then. It had the power of creation, and it was truly shocking. The further in they went, the faster the pressure increased. The demonic qi sealed by the underworld divine seal in Ning Chen's body sensed the threat from outside and began to circulate on its own. He raised his hand, and the image of a phoenix appeared. It spread its wings, and the surrounding flames gathered and entered the phoenix's body. A god of fire, the most sacred yang, bathed in the sea of fire without being injured at all. In an instant, the reddish-black flames within 100 feet receded at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the pressure also weakened. Just as the power of the flames was weakening, a bird's cry rang out from the depths of the sea of fire. A fiery red bird spread its wings and flew out. Ning Chen's expression immediately turned cold when he saw this. The vermilion bird. Without wasting any time, he pulled out the Taisher sword, and a fatal light appeared. The vermilion bird transformed into a red robe with a similar appearance. It waved its hand, and a scarlet feather sword appeared. It blocked the Taisher sword with a clang. "Ji Ming, long time no see," said the vermilion bird calmly with a cold gaze. "Fate truly is a joyous thing," replied Ning Chen coldly. Ning Chen replied coldly. The Taisher sword in his hand condensed the fire essence in all directions and shot out again. The vermilion bird also waved its feather sword, absorbing fire yuan as it met Taisher's attack. "Phoenix, your progress has disappointed me." The vermilion bird knocked away the person in front of it and coldly mocked. "Your sharp tongue can't change the fact that you're about to go to hell." Ning Chen condensed his yuan and refined his yang energy. The sea of fire surged into the air, forming a terrifying scene that made the world wail. Seeing this shocking move, the vermilion bird gathered qi in its palm and slashed its sword. In an instant, red sword light rose up, shining like stars. The two extremes collided, and the sea of fire fiercely roiled. Waves of fire soared into the sky, shocking the world. Two figures, one black and one red, retreated from the shockwaves, but they soon pressed forward once more. In the struggle for survival, they showed no mercy. The phoenix and the vermilion bird were both gods of fire, and they were destined to never coexist. Now, they were determined to devour each other and advance to the next level. After clashing several times, they knew each other's foundation. There were no secrets between them. There was only a clash of absolute strength, and each sword chased after the other's soul. The surging sword qi carved out deep trenches in the sea of fire. The two swords at the peak of the sword qi continued to vibrate, one sound after another. The sun and moon moved in the sky, and the gods of fire fought. Since they were destined to never coexist, they would fight for a place in the book of life and death for themselves. The two swords clashed, and the world tilted. The mournful wails of the swords added to the tragic beauty of the battle. Ha! In the sky, the sun set and the moon rose. In the fire, swords came and went. There was no right or wrong, no position. Swords were up and down, and the battle decided life and death. Your sword has slowed down. The vermilion bird turned its head, and its sword shot out once more. It was extremely fast and unrestrained. Ning Chen snorted coldly and pointed his finger at the moon. A wave of fire surged 3,000 feet, and the sword's soul cut open the path to the underworld. There was no one on the bridge of helplessness. With a loud explosion, the wind and clouds on the sword changed. Blood splattered into the air, and the two injured people were sent flying 30 feet. Nirvana. As soon as he took a step, his sword intent soared into the sky. The black-robed figure jumped up, and a magnificent sword light formed in front of him. In the next moment, it turned into a stream of swords. When the vermilion bird saw this, its expression became serious. It rose into the air, and with a flap of its wings, thousands of scarlet feathers transformed into streaks of sword light. They whistled through the air, and collided with the Nirvana sword. Ah! With a muffled groan, the red figure fell from the sky. Blood flowed out of its right shoulder. Its final attack was slightly inferior. The vermilion bird that had yet to remove its wings was unable to display its ancestors' might. It had lost the battle between the phoenix and the sparrow. However, at that moment, the falling vermilion bird suddenly opened its eyes. It was unwilling to admit defeat, and its will caused the world to change. Waves of fire surged around its body, and a red pillar of light soared into the sky, connecting heaven and earth. I understand. The vermilion bird's figure stopped. An incomparably vigorous primordial energy surged out of its body. The wind and clouds suddenly changed, and the world instantly became miserable. 3 lives revolving fate, vermilion bird godhood. This sword was unavoidable and unstoppable. It was an extremely shocking sword that cut open heaven and earth. It was an ancient martial arts show, and gods and ghosts were frightened. The sword that cut through time and space was like the vermilion bird godhood of ancient times. Thousands of demons were subdued, and hundreds of disasters were quelled. The sword was won, and it was indescribable. Before the phoenix, the vermilion bird had proven its own Tao. Witnessing the vermilion bird's Tao, Ning Chen's expression became serious. He pulled Yin behind him, and thousands of swords gathered from all directions to block the godhood sword. With a bang, blood splattered. Ning Chen's figure was pushed back dozens of feet. Blood dripped from his arm, dyeing the sword red. Phoenix, it's over. The vermilion bird arrived, and the sword slashed down. This sword was going to completely end this battle between the gods that had been passed down for thousands of years. Ha! At the critical moment, Ning Chen shouted. The yellow spring seal was activated, and vast demonic energy was activated. Suddenly, a silver-clothed and silver-haired figure appeared in front of him. The great Yin sword edge knocked back the vermilion bird sword. Seeing this, Ning Chen's eyes narrowed, and he immediately suppressed the demonic energy that was about to explode in his body. Are you okay? Ling Luozhen turned around and asked. I'm fine, Ning Chen said calmly. Stepping into the celestial realm. Looking at the silver-haired woman in front of her, the vermilion bird narrowed her eyes. She did not continue fighting and quickly retreated. Ji Ming, thank you for your help today. I look forward to meeting you again in the future. With that, the vermilion bird melted into the sea of fire, and there was no trace of her. Ning Chen's eyes flashed. This is troublesome. Let's go. We've been here for a long time. The western celestial world is about to open, and we have to leave as soon as possible, Ling Luozhen said. Ning Chen nodded and stepped forward to follow her. At the same time, far away from Mo planet, in the fog that covered half of the star field, a broken continent floated past. No one knew where it came from or where it was going. The Western Celestial World, one of the 4 great celestial worlds in the ancient times, collapsed in the ancient times. Everyone in the celestial world died in a day, and no one survived. From then on, the famous Queen Mother of the West also disappeared from the world, never to appear again. Today, the Western Celestial World reappeared, and the world changed. Chapter 618. The celestial world appeared in the star domain's fog. The floating broken continent slowly moved towards an unknown direction. On the various stars, old figures that had been sleeping for a long time woke up. They looked at the star domain's fog with yearning in their eyes. After waiting for hundreds of years, the celestial world finally appeared. For a time, the earth trembled. Old monsters with terrifying auras walked out of their slumber and appeared in front of everyone again. On the red Luan, Mo planet, Qingming, and other large stars, there were constantly peak experts stepping into the air and flying towards the star domain's fog. On Mo planet, EU peak, 4 figures stood respectfully in front of the platform, waiting for orders. The opportunity to enter the celestial world only appeared once every 10 years. It was abnormally precious. Even a peak existence like Master Mo attached great importance to it. In ancient times, cultivation was to become an immortal and seek the Tao. Now, cultivation was to become immortal. The obstacle between the two was actually one word, celestial. Be careful this time. Act according to Third Brother's orders. On the platform, Master Mo looked at the 4 below and said, "Yes." The 4 respectfully bowed and replied, "Go." Master Mo waved his hand and said. The 4 bowed again and immediately turned to leave. Looking at the 4's departing figures, Master Mo's eyes flashed with a faint light. This time, he hoped that they wouldn't disappoint him again. In the Feng Shui Forbidden Land, 10,000 lightning bolts fell from the sky and buried the path ahead. After entering for nearly a month, the 3 were finally about to reach the end of the danger zone. The 3 swam in the sea of lightning, avoiding the lightning attacks and quickly rushing forward. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts fell unceasingly. It was like 1,000 years of screeching, abnormally ear-piercing. The power of extreme Yin opened the path, blocking the lightning that couldn't be avoided. It was the final test before stepping out of the danger zone. In a moment of carelessness, the lightning in the sky broke through the obstruction of extreme Yin. The clouds broke through the sky and shocked the sky. A huge azure lightning bolt came crashing down and buried the 2 behind. 9th junior brother. Ling Luozhen's pupils shrank as she looked back. She wanted to help, but it was already too late. She was shocked to see a body blocking the lightning and protecting the person beside her in a dazzling brilliance. Blood dripped down, and her face was warm. Yin raised her head and looked at the figure protecting her in his arms. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Ling Luozhen immediately went forward and waved her hand to disperse the remaining lightning. "It's fine." Ning Chen straightened his body and said calmly. After that, he stretched out his hand to wipe away the tears on the little girl's face and said, "Don't cry." The charred black clothes on his back were stained with blood. How could the physical body block the might of thunder? Yin raised her small hand to wipe away the tears on her face and sobbed, "Don't cry." "Let's continue," said Ning Chen as he looked at the silver-haired woman. Ling Luozhen collected her thoughts and nodded. She flipped her palm and opened up the path of extreme Yin again. Ning Chen pulled Yin to keep up. His steps were firm, just like a portrayal of his entire life. Since he had chosen the path ahead, he would not regret it. Yin's small hand tightly grasped the former's large hand. He was the last thing she could rely on, and she was unwilling to let go. In front of them, Ling Luozhen saw the two people behind him from the corner of his eyes. He remained silent. There were two goshawks living on the 8th peak. Every time there was danger, the adult goshawks would use their wings to protect their chicks. However, could humans do the same? The interweaving lightning in the sky illuminated the faces of the people below. It also illuminated the hearts of the people under the masks. Trust, promises, and doubts were revealed one by one without a doubt. The demonic cultivator had lost his heart, but he remembered his promise and followed through with it. He had no complaints or regrets. The human heart abandoned righteousness, the demonic cultivator kept his promise, and humans and demons were inverted. How ironic! Thunder rumbled as if it was crying for this sad truth. The western celestial world was a vast and boundless world. Everywhere was desolate. The void kept collapsing as if the sky was falling. It was shocking. The broken celestial world had gone through countless years after the ancient era. It was obviously on the verge of collapse. No one knew when it would be completely destroyed. Time was merciless and covered up too many truths. The 4 celestial worlds had collapsed, and the Queen Mother of the West and the other 3 celestial world lords had gone missing. These shocking events that had been buried in the ancient era were now difficult to find out. The purpose of cultivation was to seek the Tao and live forever. However, after the collapse of the celestial world, there were fewer and fewer grand cultivators. One of the reasons was that there was not enough celestial source. There were very few places in the human world that could produce celestial source. It could not be compared to the 4 celestial worlds in the ancient era. During the primordial age and the ancient era, the celestial world was a place that all cultivators in the human world yearned for because of the celestial source. Only with the celestial source could it be possible to continue cultivating. Of course, other than the celestial source, there was another thing in the celestial world that also made cultivators in the human world scramble for it. The way to live forever. The most enviable thing about the celestial world was that one could live forever. This was also the biggest reason why cultivators in the human world had been constantly searching for traces of the celestial world for hundreds of thousands of years after its collapse. In the rolling space above the starry sky, figures flashed past one after another like shooting stars, speeding towards the western celestial world. Among them, an old man was particularly eye-catching. There was a smile on his old face, and a little boy followed beside him. He looked to be only 7 or 8 years old and was very cute. However, it was this seemingly harmless old man that made people want to avoid him. Many supreme masters who were invincible in the human world deliberately avoided him when they saw him. Grandpa will be able to live forever soon. Are you happy? The old man smiled kindly. I'm happy. The little boy nodded vigorously and replied. The old man chuckled and did not say anything more. He continued to walk forward with the little boy. At the same time, on the Red Luan planet, in a secret realm guarded by various sects, a woman in a long dress walked out. The young man in red beside her was silent, and the confusion in his eyes was clearly visible. The Red Luan secret technique, the art of bewitchment, trapped the wings of a phoenix. The woman in red knew her destiny, and she fell into the love tribulation. She would never be able to escape from the reincarnation of the mortal world. This mission is difficult. I need your help. Princess Hong Wuan looked at the young man in red beside her and said softly. Okay. The young man in red nodded and agreed. Just as Princess Hong Wuan walked out of the Red Luan planet, in the Xiaoyacheng, an inn in Jinxi City, thousands of miles away, the woman playing the zither felt an inexplicable panic in her heart, and the sound of the zither changed. In the bright guest room, the owner of the Xiaoya Tower, who was tidying up the flowers and plants, looked at the platform on the first floor and said faintly, Hong Wuan, your heart is not calm. Hearing this, Hong Wuan suppressed the panic in her heart and concentrated on playing the zither again. In the bright guest room, Mo Shaoi withdrew his gaze and said no more, continuing to tidy up the flowers and plants in front of him. In just a few days, the western immortal world reappeared in the fog of the star field, causing many changes in the situation. The entire Red Luan star zone looked at the starry sky, looking forward to the immortal opportunity that they had been waiting for hundreds of years. In the Feng Shui Forbidden Land, after going through the trials of water, fire, wind, and thunder, the three of them finally saw the way out. The light that was close at hand was in sharp contrast to the darkness of the Forbidden Land. Just as they were about to go out, Ling Luozhen stopped and waited for the person behind her to catch up. Ninth junior brother. Seeing the former approaching, Ling Luozhen said softly. Ning Qin stopped and looked at the former with a puzzled expression. Some words can't be said after going out. Remember, on the path of cultivation, don't be impatient. Don't be in a hurry to enter the immortal realm, understand? Ling Luozhen reminded again. Hearing this, Ning Qin narrowed his eyes. It was the third time. What was Ling Luozhen trying to say? I know you are suspicious, but you helped me once, so I won't harm you. Remember what I said today, and you will understand in the future, Ling Luozhen said seriously. I'll remember it. Ning Qin nodded calmly. That's good. The Western immortal world is about to open. Let's go out quickly. After saying that, Ling Luozhen turned and continued walking forward. She sighed softly in her heart, hoping that he would really remember her words. Ning Qin held the little girl's hand and followed her out. At the Legacy Peak, the white-robed Master Mo was sitting cross-legged on a platform. Seven-colored light floated around him, and he had the demeanor of a transcendent being. Not long after, Lord Mo opened his eyes and looked to the west. A light flashed in his old eyes. Has he finally come out? Master. 10 breaths later, two figures appeared and bowed respectfully. Not bad. Mo Zhu looked at the two people below the platform and said. Thank you for your praise, Master. The two of them replied. The Western immortal world is about to open. Your 4 senior brothers have already set off. You two should also set off, said Master Mo calmly. Yes. The two of them respectfully accepted the order and turned to leave. Seeing the two of them leave, Master Mo closed his eyes again and sat down cross-legged. Outside the Legacy Peak, who was waiting, immediately ran over when she saw the two of them. Are we leaving? Yes. Ning Qin nodded. He looked at the woman beside him and asked, Master sent us out. Just what is it that you're looking for? A sword. Ling Luozhen's expression turned serious. According to legend, each of the 4 great immortal worlds has an immortal sword guarding their karmic luck. Its power is world-shaking. However, after the 4 great immortal worlds collapsed, the 4 immortal swords also disappeared. The 4 immortal swords. Ning Qin frowned. So you also know about this? Ling Luozhen was slightly surprised, but then she understood. Although few people knew about this, it wasn't an absolute secret. It was recorded in the ancient books of many peak sections. The Western immortal world's immortal sword is called the Immortal Slaughtering Sword. No one has found it yet. However, when the immortal world opened last time, someone said that they saw traces of the immortal sword, and it wasn't just one person. Thus, many people will go this time, continued Ling Luozhen. Why doesn't Master go personally? Asked Ning Qin. The Western immortal world is already on the verge of collapse. It can't withstand a late-stage immortal corporeal expert. In addition, Master doesn't go because she wants to intimidate other corporeal experts, said Ling Luozhen. There are other corporeal experts in the Hongwuan star field. Ning Qin frowned. Yes. Ling Luozhen nodded. A trace of reminiscence flashed through her eyes. At that time, I had just become Master's disciple. A purple-robed swordsman came to challenge me with a sword. He easily defeated several of my senior apprentice brothers. In the end, it was Master who stepped in and barely managed to defeat him. Ning Chen's eyes brightened. A immortal corporeal expert. So there were such existences in this world. Chapter 6:19. The Star-Field Fog Sea, the Western Immortal World. After 600 years, one figure after another arrived. The vast immortal world was filled with desolation and vastness. The aura of time blew against his face, making him sigh with emotion. Experts from different large planets appeared and tacitly avoided each other. As long as there was no direct conflict of interest, no one would want to make enemies. Qi Huan and the other three had also arrived. The appearance of Mo Gate's 4 disciples attracted quite a few people's attention. Mo Gate's strength was well known by many, so Mo Gate naturally became the focus of many experts. Split up and search. If you discover a secret technique, alert us, said the yellow-robed man among the 4. Yes. Qi Huan and the other 2 nodded. The 4 of them split up, each heading in a different direction. Mo Gate's 4 disciples, interesting. The old man in sackcloth appeared with the little boy. Looking at the 4 people who had parted ways, an indecipherable smile appeared on his aged face. Not long after, the rumbling of phoenix carriages appeared in the distance. Multicolored light covered the sun. A powerful pressure descended upon the immortal realm. 5 women with extraordinary auras appeared. Each of them had a cultivation base at the peak of the immortal realm. 2 of them had even stepped into the immortal treading realm. The shocking scene immediately attracted everyone's attention, and shock appeared on their faces. This isn't the Red Phoenix Starfield's inheritance. Unfamiliar auras and unfamiliar faces. They had never seen or heard of them before. Suppressing their shock, they sped up their search for immortal karma. Even the inheritances of other realms had sent people over. The opening of the Western immortal world this time would probably cause a terrifying storm of blood. Half a day later, Ling Luozhen and Ning Chen appeared, once again attracting quite a few people's attention. It was extremely rare for Mo Gate's 6 disciples to appear together. The 6 of them have all come. It seems Mo Gate's master is determined to obtain the immortal sword, said a supremacy looking at the 2 of them. It won't be that easy. Let's not even talk about whether or not we can find the immortal sword. Even if we can find it, with so many peak experts present, it won't be easy for Mo Gate to obtain the immortal sword, said another supremacy. At the very least, Mo Gate has the most hope. Mo Gate's 8th brother, 3rd brother, and 5th brother are all immortal treading experts. Adding on the other 3, they're practically unstoppable, continued the first person. Let's wait and see. I have a feeling that this battle for the immortal sword will be unprecedentedly bitter. Boom! Just as the 2 of them were conversing, the heavens and earth in the distance began to rumble. The sounds of a great battle could be heard, and the aftershocks shook the area. Expanse after expanse of the void collapsed and spread out continuously. Immortal origin. The unconcealable fluctuation of spiritual energy was so dense that the nearest group of people were shocked and immediately rushed over. Ning Chen, who was about to leave in the opposite direction, narrowed his eyes and stopped. Without hesitation, Ning Chen held Er's hand and quickly rushed towards the place where the immortal source would appear. 9th junior brother. Ling Luozhen was startled and called out. The black-robed man didn't stop. His figure flashed by at an extremely fast speed. In a few breaths' time, he had surpassed everyone and was rushing towards the center of the battle. In the battle, a woman in a red robe and an old woman were fighting fiercely. The old woman's aura had already reached the great circle, but the woman in the red robe wasn't weak either. She danced like a fairy, and her charming appearance was even more eye-catching. Not far from the 2 of them, the floating stone formation rotated. Within it, the mountain-like celestial sources exuded an astonishing amount of spiritual qi. There were at least several thousand of them. Vaguely, the power of laws vibrated, causing people to go crazy. Outside the stone formation, the battle for the celestial sources was becoming more and more intense. Wherever the shockwaves passed, space would constantly collapse and disappear. Seeing this, the black-robed man broke the stone formation with a sword and took the celestial sources with a flip of his hand. Impudent! The old woman and the woman in the red robes' expressions both changed. They condensed vast origin energy in their palms and blocked the black-robed man. However, the black-robed man was like an illusion. He took strange steps and instantly dodged their attacks. He waved his hand and took all the celestial sources. The sudden change made the old woman and the woman in the red robe unable to restrain their anger. Without saying anything, they attacked the black-robed man in front of them. His sword blocked the two attacks, and he took advantage of the momentum to retreat several meters. He didn't want to continue fighting and was about to retreat. Suddenly, a powerful palm force came from behind, blocking his path of retreat. Ning Chen turned around and waved his sword to disperse the palm. He looked at the green-robed woman who had appeared in the battle. His deep eyes didn't change in the slightest. "Hand over the celestial sources and I'll spare your life," said the green-robed woman coldly. "Come." The three surrounded him. Ning Chen held his sword in front of him and said indifferently, "The celestial sources are in my hands. If you have the ability, come and take them." His savage words were cold and arrogant. In this celestial world where the strong preyed on the weak, only the winner was king. There were no rules, so the demon didn't need to hide his nature. Yin hugged the former's left hand and took half a step back. She hid behind him obediently and didn't say anything. In the face of this provocation, the three became even angrier. They stepped forward and attacked together. When the three arrived, Ning Chen waved his hand. First, he used the Sun Sutra martial art. In an instant, the power of extreme yang was activated. The vast power of yang gathered in his sword and shot out. With a boom, the three retreated at the same time. The extreme yang entered their bodies and caused their blood to boil. Too weak. The motionless demon didn't hide the mockery in his eyes. His sword was cold, declaring the madness of a demon. After a short confrontation, experts arrived one after another to observe the battle. The situation was clear. 3 against 1. There was no need to guess. It was clear who was on the other side. Just as the battle was about to begin, an extremely powerful white-robed figure walked over. After a few steps, she arrived at the battlefield. Seeing her two fellow disciples, she calmly asked, "What's going on?" "Senior apprentice sister, the celestial sources were taken by him," said the woman in robes, unable to conceal her anger. The white-robed woman frowned slightly. She looked at the black-robed youth in front of her. She didn't say anything. Her figure flashed, and her slender hand turned into a heavenly net that reached for his shoulder blade. "People of the spirit void Starfield, you've overstepped your boundaries." Just at this moment, silver hair fluttered in the wind. The extreme Yin heavenly net blocked the white-robed woman with a palm. "Mo Gates' 8th disciple lives up to his name," said the white-robed woman indifferently as she retreated. "You're too kind," said Ling Luozhen calmly. "Caning, Biao, let's go," said the white-robed woman before turning and leaving. The two women glanced unwillingly at the black-robed youth in front of them before following her. Not far away, when the spectating experts saw Ling Luozhen intervene, they sighed inside. Although they were unwilling, they could only leave. A late immortal void expert was practically unrivaled in the immortal world. Offending such an expert for a few celestial sources was not worth it. "Junior apprentice brother, let's go," said Ling Luozhen. Ning Chen nodded. He waved his hand and put away his sword. He held Yu Ling's hand and followed. "Ning Chen, can you beat that sister just now?" On the way, Yin waved her hand and asked softly. I can't, said Ning Chen honestly. Then what if big sister Ling Luo can't attack in time? Your identity can't be known by others, said Yin angrily. Run, said Ning Chen matter-of-factly. When Yin heard this, she almost choked to death. After thinking about it, she broke free from the big hand and ran to the front. She held the silver-haired woman's hand and said sweetly, Big sister Ling Luo, the people here are so fierce. Ning Chen's cultivation level is too low. He can't beat them. Ling Luozhen was startled. She wasn't used to this, but she still nodded. Seeing this, Yin broke into a smile. Her pretty little face was even more adorable. Seeing the little lass's innocent smile, Ling Luozhen's cold expression softened a lot. After walking with the woman for a while, Yin quietly ran to the back and held his hand once more. Now I'm not afraid. Yin raised her head and giggled. Ning Chen rubbed her hair. His expression was calm, and he didn't say anything. This girl was becoming more and more crafty. Just as the three of them were searching for the immortal sword, two figures were walking side by side in the opposite direction. The woman in the white dress and the red-robed man were a perfect match. Suddenly, the ground in front of them rumbled. Arrow light shot out from the ground towards the two of them. The red-robed man waved his right hand, and an ink-black sword appeared. With a slash of his sword, the thousands of arrows shattered. As the arrows shattered, the ground continued to rumble. In the blink of an eye, thousands more arrows tore through the air. In that moment of crisis, the red-robed man brought the woman with him and rapidly retreated. He then stabbed his sword into the ground, causing the ground to collapse. Amidst the dust, a rusty ancient war chariot appeared. Its huge metal body emitted an eerie chill that made people feel a chill down their backs. The war chariot was extremely large, dozens of meters long and wide. It was completely rusty, and there were countless runes engraved on its body. A faint light flickered as it constantly absorbed the surrounding energy of heaven and earth. Bronze war chariot. Princess Hongwuan narrowed her eyes. Ha, this thing isn't bad. I want it. At this moment, an old man's laughter rang out. An old man in linen robes walked out with a young boy. He extended his hand towards the Azure Dragon war chariot. Ken Hong. The red-robed man instantly moved. His sword was extremely fast, and his figure was extremely fast. His sword was dyed red. With a ripping sound, the old man's robes were torn apart. Blood poured out of his outstretched arm, sprinkling onto the ground. Oh. It seems I've underestimated you. The hemp-robed old man's expression darkened. His figure moved, and his withered palm slapped out with the force of 10,000 kilograms. The red-robed man brandished his sword, and with a bang, he met the palm head-on. The palm and sword collided, and both sides retreated half a step. The sword in the red-robed man's hand changed again, and a phoenix appeared behind him. His sword moved, and the wind and clouds were chaotic. The phoenix was extremely fast, and without a trace, each strike was fatal. The old man blocked a sword, and was struck again. His palm was as heavy as a mountain, and he slapped down once more. However, the red-robed man immediately withdrew his sword, dodging the attack. Troublesome brat. Seeing that his opponent was not ordinary, the old man coldly sneered. His palm suddenly changed direction, and he slapped toward the woman not far away. The woman was in danger, but the red-robed man's expression was not the slightest bit flustered. The mocking smile on his face was clearly visible. Ghost slave, after escaping from the Red Luan King's realm, have you forgotten your master's appearance? Princess Hongwuan calmly spoke a sentence as the palm energy neared her. She raised her hand and calmed the wind and clouds. Soon after, she slammed her palm towards the old man's chest, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Red Luan royal family. The old man groaned, and his eyes were filled with shock. He did not dare to stay any longer, and he quickly retreated with the young boy. Chapter 620. In the southeast of the western celestial world, there was an abyss as deep as the sea, with waves crashing against it. It was an immortal realm shrouded in mist. A silver-haired woman walked over, followed by two figures, one large and one small, as they walked into the abyss. Compared to other places, this place was still relatively intact. Clear springs flowed, and a cool breeze blew. It was peaceful. Don't be careless. The celestial world's laws have been destroyed for a long time. No place is safe, reminded Ling Luozhen softly. Yes. Ning Chen looked around and nodded. When Yin heard this, she also tightly held on to the person beside her, feeling a bit nervous. The three of them walked forward, doing their best to restrain their auras so as not to affect the changes in the world around them. However, when the three of them reached the center of the abyss, the wind and clouds in the sky changed. Crack! A heart-shaking sound rang out. The originally intact space suddenly split open, and a huge crack appeared. Gales howled, and the wind and clouds were constantly sucked into the crack. A moment later, the entire abyss collapsed. The mountains and rivers were quickly swallowed by the void, disappearing without a trace. Let's go. Ling Luozhen's expression changed slightly, and she let out a shout and rushed forward. Ning Chen grabbed the little girl next to him and immediately followed after him. The collapsing world rapidly spread, swallowing everything in its path. It was eerie and bone-chilling. The moment the three of them escaped from the abyss, the entire void behind them collapsed. A huge black hole spread out for hundreds of miles. It was extremely terrifying. In the next moment, a 7-colored paper crane flew out. It wasn't large, only the size of a palm. It held a translucent jade hairpin in its mouth, and it emitted a dazzling light. Western King Hairpin. Ling Luozhen's body shook when she saw the hairpin in the paper crane's mouth. It was rumored that during the ancient war between the Celestial World and the Celestial World, when the Celestial World's army was on the verge of collapse, the Queen Mother of the West appeared. She took off the hairpin that bound her hair and forcibly drew a river between heaven and earth, blocking the path of the 100,000 celestial demon soldiers. She had never thought that the legend was true. The Western King Hairpin really did exist. In the sky, the 7-colored paper crane flew away. It was extremely fast, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Seeing the paper crane leave, Ning Chen didn't have time to say anything. He turned into a streak of light and chased after it with Paper cranes and phoenixes competed with extreme speed. They swept past the skies of the immortal world in the blink of an eye, so fast that even their afterimages couldn't be recognized. It was truly shocking. Since the collapse of the immortal realm, many rare treasures had disappeared with the passage of time. However, every time the immortal realm opened, rare treasures would appear. The 4 immortal swords were undoubtedly the best treasures. The hairpin of the Western King was slightly inferior, but it was also hard to find. The paper crane was intelligent. It constantly changed directions as it fled, avoiding obstacles along the way. It did not stop for even a moment. Ning Chen followed closely behind, not giving a single step back. He was exceptionally cautious. Along the way, many people saw this scene, but before they could give chase, they lost track of the man and the crane. They moved with extreme speed, passed through the restrictions of space, and tore apart expanse after expanse of space. In next to no time, they completely shook off the group of pursuers behind them. The immortal realm was vast. As the streak of light moved faster and faster, it attracted more and more people's attention. The few women from the Spirit Void Star Zone who had a conflict with Ning Chen saw this. A strange light flashed in the eyes of the woman in white, who was the leader, and she quickly followed. The woman's movement technique was extremely shocking. It was actually not inferior to the 7-colored paper crane and the phoenix. With every step she took, countless runes were destroyed. It was so close yet so far away. It was extremely fast. The two figures, one in front and one behind, chased for an unknown period of time. In front of an immortal mountain, the 7-colored paper crane changed directions again, and rushed into the depths of the immortal mountain. At the same time, in the immortal mountain, Queen Hung Wan and the red-clothed man, who were walking side by side, felt the aura behind them and stopped. Wave after wave of pressure quickly approached. When she saw the jade hairpin in the paper crane's mouth, Queen Hung Wan's expression also became serious. She said, "I will block that treading immortal. You go and get the jade hairpin." "Okay." The red-clothed young man nodded. He waved his hand and held his sword. Immediately, his figure flashed, and his sword cut through the air. The 7-colored paper crane did not have time to dodge the sudden extremely fast sword light. With a loud tremor, the brilliance around her flickered. After that sword, Taishar's sword light arrived. Finally, the paper crane could not hold on any longer. It turned into specks of light and disappeared. The jade hairpin fell. Two figures rushed over at the same time, reaching out to grab it. The black-clothed and red-clothed people looked different, but their gazes were shockingly similar. Their palms collided, and they retreated several steps. Between the two, the jade hairpin fell silently. Neither of them could take it. On the other side, Queen Hung Wan blocked the white-clothed woman. The battle between treading immortals had just started. "Why are you here?" Ning Chen looked at the red-clothed figure in front of him and asked in a low voice. However, the only reply he received was a cold sword light. It was merciless and chased after his soul to take his life. Ning Chen's expression turned serious. Taishar swung his sword to meet the sword. The two swords clashed. The sword wind swept through the surroundings. Wherever the aftershock passed, the sword wind split open the clouds. In terms of extremely fast attack and defense, the red-clothed man had the upper hand. In terms of strength, the black-clothed man stood proudly. In the battle between the two experts, the swords crossed. The sword light was dazzling. The familiar sword, the opponent with the mirror body. The ink in the red-clothed man's hand danced faster and faster, colder and colder. The black-clothed demonic body could not see why the person in front of him had become like this. He could only hold the sword in his hand and fight the phoenix body head-on. Not far away, Queen Hung Wan, who was fighting with the white-clothed woman, looked at the battle from the corner of her eyes. She was shocked. She did not expect that there would be someone in the immortal world with such sword skills. Distracted in battle. Aren't you overconfident? The white-clothed woman's palm moved and pressed towards the former's heart meridian. It's enough for you. Queen Hung Wan calmed her mind and condensed her yuan energy to block the palm power. The cultivation technique of the Red Luan royal family. It seems like you are the current generation's Queen Hung Wan. The white-clothed woman retreated half a step. Her delicate hands opened and closed. Wind and thunder gathered from all directions. A supreme divine power shocked the heavens and shattered the earth. Seeing this, Queen Hung Wan's expression turned serious. She turned her palm and condensed her yuan energy. Red mist curled around her. The aura was decadent, and the sky changed color. The two techniques reflected the sun and the moon. The strength of an emptiness realm expert was undoubtedly displayed. In an instant, the two techniques collided. The earth-shattering power destroyed everything in the surroundings. The two people fighting not far away were also affected and retreated a few steps. In the dust, the jade hairpin flew up and shone brightly. The two figures arrived at the same time and their swords collided again. The peak of martial arts and the peak of sword techniques. The two battles reached their climax at the same time. End the battle quickly. After fighting for a while, Queen Hong-won felt that her opponent was not ordinary. She looked at the battle at the side and reminded. Hearing this, the red-clothed man responded calmly. Soon after, he condensed his yuan energy. The red light in his hand kept rising. An unprecedented aura spread out. For symbols: God Sealing, Dragon Sparrow Transformation. The God Sealing sword appeared again. The azure dragon and the vermilion bird roared out. Borrowing each other's strength, the two bodies intertwined and slashed towards the black-clothed man. The demonic body focused and pulled in behind him. The Taisher sword in his hand moved rapidly. With the support of the sun scripture, endless flames shone and shook the heavens and the earth. The peak techniques collided. The two figures each took a few steps back and the corners of their mouths were dyed red. The swords on swords stood at the peak. It was difficult to determine the winner. The two figures in one body had become each other's greatest opponent at this moment. At this moment, a 7 or 8-year-old boy appeared out of thin air in the center of the battle. After snatching the jade hairpin, he immediately headed west. The sudden change made the four people in the battle look cold. They immediately chased after him. 2 of them were at the peak of sword techniques and 2 of them were at the ascending immortal realm. They chased after him rapidly. However, the boy's movement technique was extremely strange. He kept disappearing into thin air. Although he could not escape too far each time, he still brought a lot of trouble to the four. After chasing for a long time, the boy's figure could no longer be seen. What entered their eyes was the desolation after the battle. "Grandpa, I've snatched the jade hairpin." 100 miles away, after temporarily escaping the pursuit of the 4 people, the boy's figure appeared. He handed the jade hairpin to the hemp-clothed old man who was waiting in front. "Good boy." The old man took the jade hairpin and patted the boy's head with a kind face. "Ghost slave, your courage has really made me have a whole new level of respect for you." As the old man spoke, a red mist filled the air. Princess Hong-won, who was wearing a white dress, appeared. Her exceptionally beautiful face carried a trace of coldness as she spoke. "Princess, don't go too far." Seeing the girl appear, the old man's eyes sank. "It seems like you have escaped from the Red One King's territory for too long. You have already forgotten the feeling of being imprisoned." Princess Hong-won walked forward step by step and said coldly. Every step was oppressive, as if she was stepping on his heart. The hemp-clothed old man made up his mind and rushed out, taking the initiative to gain the initiative. "Impudent." Princess Hong-won's eyes shone brightly. With a bang, the old man's knees sank and he involuntarily knelt down. Once a slave, he would be bound for life. The old man's face was filled with unwillingness. He kept struggling, wanting to get up but failed again and again. Why? The old man's expression was malevolent as he roared. "Because I am the master and you are the slave." Princess Hong-won said indifferently. With a wave of her hand, a red light scattered and sent the old man flying. Blood splattered everywhere and dyed the immortal world red. The old man had no chance to retaliate. He crawled on the ground, blood flowing out of his mouth. He struggled to get up but was unable to do so. With a bang, he knelt down again. Hee, the old man laughed madly. Blood dyed his body red. Half of the bones in his knees were shattered. It was difficult for him to resist the difference in status between the two. With his body heavily injured, the old man's body flickered with light. The effect of the disguise technique disappeared and his old face changed, turning into a young man who looked to be in his 20s. His clothes were messy and his hair was dyed red. Gue Nu endured the pain in his knees and forced himself to stand up. Not far away, the little boy ran over with a panicked expression and supported the old man. "It's time to return what belongs to the Red Luan royal family." Princess Hong-won raised her hand and the jade hairpin flew out of the little boy's hand. "If I can't get it, no one can. Gue Nu shouted malevolently. He gathered all his strength in his palm and chopped towards the jade hairpin. Princess Hong Wuan's expression changed. She did not expect this and wanted to stop it, but it was too late. Crack! A crisp sound was heard. It was the full power of a treading immortal expert. Cracks appeared on the jade hairpin and soon after, it shattered. In an instant, a golden light soared into the sky, illuminating the world. Immediately, the entire immortal world shook violently. Above the void, palaces appeared one after another. They were majestic and majestic, shocking everyone. Chapter 621. Above the void, the immortal palace appeared. It was majestic and majestic, shocking everyone in the immortal world. The West Palace. The powerhouses cried out. Since the collapse of the Western immortal world, the immortal palace had also disappeared. For hundreds of thousands of years, everyone thought that the immortal palace had been destroyed in the changes of the immortal world. No one expected that it would appear again today. After a short period of shock, the powerhouses in the immortal world regained their senses and rushed toward the immortal palace. With the appearance of the West Palace, the treasures hidden in the immortal palace would also appear one by one. The first to arrive would have a better chance. Outside the immortal mountain, Princess Hong Wuan looked at the immortal palace in the distance. A strange look flashed across her beautiful eyes. Without further delay, her figure flashed and flew toward the sky. Not far away, the young man in red saw this and also flew toward the immortal palace. For a moment, streams of light streaked across the sky of the immortal realm, coming from all directions and rushing towards the West Palace in the sky. In the sky of the immortal world, the majestic immortal palace floated, ancient and solemn, symbolizing the supreme power of the immortal world. Today, it appeared again. In front of the crowd, a golden stream of light flew past quickly. Upon closer inspection, the golden hairpin with a dragon and a phoenix showed its true appearance. After the seal was broken, it returned to the immortal palace. In the blink of an eye, the golden hairpin flew into the immortal palace and disappeared completely. In the next moment, the black-robed and red-robed men arrived at the same time. The moment they passed each other, the two swords clashed. The sword light surged and scattered for hundreds of feet. Mahist Sek's ninth brother. Behind them, someone recognized the black-robed young man who entered the immortal palace first and exclaimed in surprise. It's ninth brother. Qi Huan and the others also noticed the situation and flew toward the immortal palace at a faster speed. The black-robed and red-robed men were faster than everyone else. Even the powerhouses in the immortal realm were slightly slower than the phoenix. Who is that person? His speed is not inferior to Mahist Sek's ninth brother. I don't know. I've never heard of him. Seeing that someone had entered the immortal palace, everyone behind them sped up, unwilling to fall behind. The two figures disappeared. Behind them, the white-robed woman also entered the immortal palace. Her speed was not inferior. Then came Princess Hong Wuan, Ling Luozhen, and other treading immortals. Their unusually powerful auras shocked the people behind them. Above the immortal palace, halls after halls were arranged in a crisscrossing pattern. The aura of time assaulted his senses, boundless and heavy. Time was precious. Red Coat and Black Coat chose to stop fighting at the same time and rushed in the direction where the golden hairpin disappeared. The two of them moved side by side, stopping in front of an enormous palace. They looked at the tightly shut immortal palace, brandishing their swords to cut through the air. With a loud bang, the door to the palace collapsed. The celestial palace that had been sealed for countless years once again appeared before the world. The two walked into immortal palace with cautious expressions, not daring to act carelessly in the slightest. Inside the immortal palace, there was not a single person on the high and mighty throne. The once supreme master of the Western immortal realm had completely disappeared in the long river of time. 10 steps away from the throne, the two of them approached. Suddenly, the earth trembled and a silver-armored figure appeared amidst a dazzling brilliance. A halberd whistled through the air and forced the two of them back. A startling change occurred. The silver-armored man in front of him was young and handsome. He was extraordinarily valiant, and with a halberd in hand, he dared to block an army of 1,000. Drip drip, the sound of blood dripping rang out. Red coat and black coat, blood dripped from their sword-wielding hands. With just a single move, they suffered serious injuries. Behind black coat, the little girl's expression was abnormally nervous. She understood that encountering any living existence in this immortal realm was the most terrifying thing. After a moment of confrontation, the two of them did not say a word and once again rushed forward. The two swords moved at extreme speed, threatening to kill the war spirit. The silver-armored general brandished his halberd to meet the battle. Silver brilliance flickered, and there were no openings. The two swords were unable to move an inch. His speed was restricted, and the demonic body's momentum changed. His sword was like a falling mountain, chopping towards the former. The combination of power and speed was flawless. One fast and one heavy, and the battle began again. As they clashed, sword light and halberd light scattered in all directions. On the ground of the immortal palace, glaring ravines appeared one after another. The valiant and skilled immortal general was fighting 1 against 2, but he did not fall into a disadvantageous position. Vaguely, he gradually suppressed the sharpness of the two swords. Strength and speed were the first to show weakness. The expressions of the two of them became more and more serious. Their combination of speed and speed was unstoppable, but it was in vain. As the battle was about to collapse, figures arrived from behind. The white-clothed woman, Princess Hong Wuan, Qi Huan, and the others appeared. Looking at the battle before them, they stopped. Immortal General Wang, Princess Hong Wuan said seriously. "This is troublesome." Qi Huan, Ling Luozhen, and the other 3 peak masters also became serious. The immortal general in front of them was obviously just a remnant soul, but he had such a terrifying oppressive force. "Let's join forces. Otherwise, no one will be able to pass." Seeing that the two swords were about to collapse, the yellow-clothed 3rd peak master beside Qi Huan looked at everyone and said, "Okay." Princess Hong Wuan, the white-clothed woman, and several other immortal treading experts nodded and agreed. Mahist sect, Princess Hong Wuan, the people of the Spirit Void Star Zone, and the experts of the various stars, almost 10 immortal treading experts and dozens of immortal treading experts joined forces. 10 steps before the throne, the young general in silver armor moved at the same time. His spinning halberd shocked the experts. His valiant fighting spirit did not allow anyone to take half a step forward. In the battle, the demon body pulled the little girl out. Looking forward, there were not many changes in his deep eyes. Hundreds of thousands of years had passed, but there were still people in the celestial palace. Even if they were souls, it was still unbelievable. One could imagine how powerful this person was when they were alive to be able to hold on until now with just a remnant soul. In addition, the phoenix body's change was also very strange. Previously in the Xiaoya Chang restaurant, he felt that something was wrong from the sword wound on Hong Wan's face. With the phoenix body's personality, she would never do such a thing to an innocent girl. While he was thinking, outside the battle, a young man in linen clothes appeared with a little boy. He quietly observed the battle, and a hint of coldness flashed across his sinister face from time to time. Many experts arrived. In front of the throne, the battle became more and more intense. Dozens of experts above the immortal treading realm joined forces and went against the immortal treading path. Powerful forces swept through the entire celestial palace. With a halberd in hand, the silver-armored general blocked the pass alone. Even someone as strong as the immortal treading path couldn't pass the heavenly pass. Just as the battle reached its climax, outside the celestial palace, heaven and earth trembled. A terrifying sword aura appeared without any warning and broke through the air. The demon body sensed it and immediately retreated dozens of feet to avoid the sword aura. However, the immortal treading realm experts in the battle weren't so lucky. The sword aura passed through their bodies, and before they could react, they exploded. Everyone was shocked and immediately retreated. However, the sword aura and the halberd collided. With a loud bang, the silver-armored general retreated for the first time. Outside the celestial palace, a purple-clad figure walked in. He looked to be around 30 years old and held a divine gold longsword in his hand. The sword intent was domineering and terrifying. Purple Marquis. Qi Huan, Ling Luozhen, and the other 3 peak masters of the Mahist sect changed their expressions. No one expected this person to appear here. 100 years ago, Purple Marquis challenged the EU peak with a sword. Many disciples of the Mahist sect joined forces but couldn't stop him. In the end, the Mahist sect master took action but only won by a narrow margin and forced him to retreat. It could be said that in the entire Red Luan Star region, Purple Marquis was an expert who stood at the peak. There were few who could match him. When Purple Marquis appeared, everyone subconsciously retreated. An existence who had stepped into the immortal corporeal realm was practically a symbol of invincibility. In front of the throne, the silver-armored general's calm eyes focused for the first time. He held his halberd horizontally, not retreating even half a step. The immortal world has already been destroyed. Your era has already passed. You shouldn't exist. Purple Marquis coldly said. His body moved, and the divine gold longsword slashed down. It was forceful and domineering. The sword and halberd collided. The silver-armored general was forced back 3 steps. His soul was violently shaken. The remnant soul that had persisted for countless years and was already on the verge of dissipating had finally dissipated. I'll take your life in 3 moves. Purple Marquis coldly snorted. The sword in his hand drew upon the surrounding energy of heaven and earth. A majestic second sword slashed down once more. With a loud explosion, the silver-armored general was forced back 3 steps. Cracks appeared on the halberd in his hand. Time was merciless. Even divine weapons couldn't last forever. Outside the battle, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. An expert who had stepped into the immortal corporeal realm was actually this powerful. You've already done your best. My final sword will send you to the west. At the end of the battle, the sword intent had already spread. Purple Marquis's robes fluttered in the wind as his sword hummed. An incomparably domineering sword slashed through the sky. My king. The silver-armored general turned his head, a trace of regret in his eyes. He had persisted for hundreds of thousands of years, but in the end, he still wasn't able to wait for his king's return. His unyielding will hadn't wavered even at the final juncture. The silver-armored general revolved his halberd, using the last of his strength to block the sword light. A lower immortal general of the immortal king realm. When he was alive, he was a valiant warrior. When the sword and halberd collided, space-time froze. Dazzling golden light illuminated the immortal palace. An ancient and everlasting energy sword. It was so powerful that even heaven and earth prostrated themselves before it. In the next moment, a beautiful figure that could suppress both ancient and modern times walked out. Her style was peerless, and her appearance was flawless. It was so beautiful that no one dared to look directly at her. The woman raised her hand, and the sword stopped. Then with a light wave, the sword shattered. The battle was separated. Ugh! Purple Marquis flew back and landed miserably on the ground. He vomited a mouthful of blood and looked at the woman in front of him with shock. The Western Queen Mother. The appearance of an immortal master caused a terrifying pressure to spread. The entire immortal world shook intensely, and its collapse sped up. Outside the battle, everyone was also shocked. Without a doubt, This woman was the master of the Western immortal world from the ancient era. She had once suppressed 3 ancient experts. "My king," said the silver-armored general respectfully, suppressing his excitement. "Jing Xian, you've worked hard," said the Western Queen Mother. "This subordinate doesn't dare to complain about his responsibilities," replied the silver-armored general. "You've already done very well. You can leave the rest to me." "You should rest," sighed the Western Queen Mother. The silver-armored general knelt down, his expression calm as he bowed one last time. "My battle soul is immortal. My king lives forever." Jing Xian had no more regrets. After bitterly enduring for hundreds of thousands of years, he finally reached the end of his life. His soul turned into motes of starlight and scattered. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.